If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 61, Grounded. Looking across the crowd, I see Malfoy walk up to Harry with his father, who is not far behind. I roll my eyes as I make my way through the crowd to make sure nothing happens. I'm sure Lucius wouldn't do anything in the open, but I still don't want him to bully a child. Ron was already heading that way, so he made it there before Hermione or me. Once I get out of the crowd, I grab Malfoy by the shoulder. "What was it you wanted, cousin?" As he hears my voice, he shivers and pulls away, looking at me. I look at Ron and see his face is beet red from embarrassment and my mood sours. "What did you say, Draco?" I look at him with angry eyes. Ron puts down his books and is about to hit Malfoy, but Harry and Hermione hold him back. I turn and smile at Ron. "Allow me." I whip back around and smack Draco with the back of my hand, knocking him over. Lucius is behind him at this point and catches him with a hand, tossing him behind him. "Pathetic," I hear him mutter. "Soren," I hear Mr. Weasley say over the crowd as he and the twins head our way. Seeing Arthur walking up, Lucius smirks as expected. The unrestrained child is friends with Arthur Weasley's children. Arthur glares Lucius. "Displeasure to see you again." Lucius smiles at his anger. "All those raids recently. I hope you are getting paid enough for all that time." He grabs a book out of Ginny's cauldron, looking at one of the books I gave her this morning. "Obviously not. Dear me, what's the use of being a disgrace to the name of wizard if they don't even pay you well for it?" My eyes grow colder at him insulting the gift I gave Ginny. "We have very different ideas of what disgraces the name of wizard, Malfoy." Arthur snarls his words. He glances at me, Mr. and Mrs. Granger, then looks back at Arthur. "I see you still don't keep good company." "Honestly, I hadn't thought it could fall low," I snap. I kick his leg with all my strength, causing him to fall to one knee. Eyes now at my height. "Soren!" I hear Mrs. Weasley yell as she reaches for me, but she is too slow. Lucius brings his arms up to defend himself, but I throw an elbow at his jaw before he can. The hit causes him to fall to the ground hard. I quickly step closer and raise my leg, about to stomp his head at full force. Before I can, I get blinded by the flash of a camera and feel someone pick me up by the back of my shirt off of the annoying blonde racist. I turn to see Hagrid holding me in the air like a kitten after almost ending a man. Lucius scurries up and gives the books back to Ginny, avoiding my glare instead of looking at Arthur. Hagrid glares at Malfoy as well until he is out of view, then laughs while looking at me. "Great job, Soren. But you shouldn't be hidden like that even if they are rotten to the core," he says while putting me down. Mrs. Weasley grabs me. "Are you all right? Did you get hurt?" I smile at her concern. "I'm just fine, Mrs. Weasley." "Why did you do that?" "That was completely out of line." "Well deserved, but out of line. No doubt you'll be in the Daily Prophet from that." "Gosh, what does Lockhart think of you now? He will be your teacher." She looks most concerned about the last sentence, which makes me laugh. Fred grabs my arm and whispers to me, "I bet if we talk to the Daily Prophet guy we can get that in the front page of the paper." I look up in a fake pondering position. I can see it now. "Head of Malfoy family beat to floor by child." A bit wordy, but I think it would work. Everyone laughs it off as a joke, but George is already over talking to the Daily Prophet reporter, gassing him up. After everything calmed down, Hagrid leaves and we go out to eat with the Granger family at the Leaky Cauldron. It is a nice meal considering the nice environment after that little hiccup in the trip. Once we get done eating, I leave them to head home separate from everyone else, mainly because I have stuff I want to do before school starts. Once I get away from the crowds, I apparate away and appear in a wide open field that seems to extend as far as the eye can see. The field is full of large rocks and beautiful flowers with no humans in any direction. This is the Forest of Boland, the place I have chosen as my secret base. I want to create a large base here and use charms to make sure no one ever knows it exists. I chose the Forest of Boland is because even if the areas are beautiful, only a psychopath would actually hike through a giant field of rocks, right? Mainly people only hike through the actual forest part of the areas, which leaves miles and miles of uninhabited and untreated areas. I walk until I find an opening in the field of rocks where I can build something without needing to restrict its size. I want to build a tower that pierces the sky without anyone knowing. I wanted to build a tower that rivals Barad-dûr. Perhaps that sounds villain-like, but I really want a true mage tower, like a place to hide away from the people I don't like. AKA 90% of people. I take my time and use the only ward that I have actually been able to learn so far. The anti-tracking wards. The sheer amount of time it took me to learn this one ward scares me about learning the rest. After a few hours of putting up the wards, I decide that I need the spell that Sid used to conceal Azkaban. Mainly because I remember reading he used ritual-based magic to set up the wards. That hopefully means that I can then set up the wards without needing to be good at the magic. I apparate to Azkaban again, returning to that bottom floor well below the tower. Seeing the bed and desk along with the rows of bookshelves all completely clean sends a wave of nostalgia over me. It feels like a lifetime ago that I was last here, perhaps it was. Shaking off my feelings, I walk through the rows of books looking for the one labeled wards. It is easy to find since they are all arranged alphabetically. I also grab one labeled Protogoema. I take it for later study. Opening the warding rituals book, I find a few that interest me and write down the instructions to the ritual. After fully reading them over, I start to think this won't be possible. The powerful ward that Sid kept over this place that hid him from humanity for years requires blood sacrifices to maintain, at least one life every 5 years. That's one of the reasons it was the first to fall when he was running low on magical power. As I am about to give up, I remember something and look straight up. I have willing sacrifices at the ready. Shifting into my Dementor form, I fly through the floors into the guards' quarters. I grab the ledger that gives all the information on the prisoners. Seeing the crimes, I decide that it will be fine to maintain my barrier since they are sentenced to life in Azkaban anyway. Noting this for the future, I go back down, taking the things I need from Sid's lab and apparate back to the house. Any longer and Auntie would murder me for being late. Asterisk. The next day I make sure to get a copy of the Daily Prophet to see if they actually wrote about me. As I'm walking downstairs to go get the paper, I see Auntie standing there with her hands on her hips glaring at me. I gulp as I see the paper in her hand. I give a wry smile. So I see I made the paper. Her glare narrows. Did you really beat up my brother-in-law? I rub the back of my head. I mean, beat up is an exaggerated way to put it, really. I just gave him a light kick and a light smack, then he kind of just fell over. Quite pathetic, really. What were you thinking? You could have gotten hurt, or worse, arrested. She yells, almost throwing the paper at me. Well, he deserved it. He insulted Mr. Weasley and the Grangers right in front of me. I wasn't going to let him just talk like that. I say in my defense. They are adults. They can handle it, Soren. You don't have to do everything yourself. Other people are stronger than you think. Not to mention you broke the law. She says, calming, obviously ready to explode. They may be able to take it, but what about their kids? Ginny, Ron, Hermione. How do you think they felt having their parents insulted right in front of them, unable to even defend themselves? I say, getting a little angry. You are a kid too, Soren. Please stop worrying me like this. This is the first time I've ever heard Auntie yell so seriously. Hearing her so earnestly angry makes my heart pang in pain. I put my head down. I didn't even think about all the things I do could be worrying Auntie. The staying out late, the fighting a troll, the fighting a rogue wizard in the Forbidden Forest, and now fighting an old racist. I'm sorry, Auntie Dromeda, I didn't even think about it. I've never had anyone who has worried about me before. My fists ball in anger at myself for making the person I care for most worry about me. As I'm looking down, I feel Auntie hug me and softly stroke my back. I hold back my tears as I embrace her. I'm sorry, Auntie. She kisses the top of my head. I forgive you, Soren, I always will. But please. Be careful. I nod as I hug her tighter. I look up to see her smile at me. But you're still grounded until you go to school next week. Chapter 62, The Quibbler. On the day to return to Hogwarts, I head downstairs with my suitcase to see a tired Uncle Ted and an excited Auntie waiting at the kitchen table. I put my stuff by the door and sit down at the table to eat. Sitting down, I see a note from Sis next to my plate. Good luck in the new year. 3 Nymphadora. I smile as I fold it and put it in my pocket. So, why are you so tired, Uncle Ted? You are usually up pretty early. I ask, taking a few bites. He leans back in his chair. There was a group caught breaking broom regulation Article 6. I volunteered to do the paperwork for it since I'm new. Little did I know I was volunteering to write reports on 17 counts of misuse. Well, who was it? I ask, genuinely curious. It's rare for people to break broom regulation. It was a test group from Nimbus Racing Company. They put an illegal charm on the prototype of the Nimbus 2001, he says, getting up ready to leave. My eyebrows raise. That's interesting, I guess. Auntie rolls her eyes. Are you done eating? We need to be leaving soon. I scarf down the rest of the plate and get up, grabbing my things. I make sure to keep a few of Sid's books hidden inside my cloak for some darker reading later. After another 2-hour drive to London, we arrive at King's Cross with the same routine. I grab a trolley and load my stuff on, going through the pillar yet again. When we get to the platform I look around for people I recognize and don't see anyone. I do see a lot of new faces though. Through a thick crowd of people I meet eyes with Lucius for just a moment, but he doesn't let his eyes linger. Like father like son, I smirk to myself as I turn back to Auntie and Uncle. I say goodbye to Uncle Ted and Auntie Dromeda, taking all my things to the storage area. Since I don't see anyone I recognize and social interaction with new people scares me a bit, I just head inside. Walking through the train I head to the second year area. I see a lot of people I recognize like Draco and Daphne. I nod as I pass but don't stop. A few cabins down I see Seamus, Dean, and Neville sitting together. Seamus annoys me, so I say hello and keep walking. Finding an empty cabin I close the door and lock it behind me. I quickly age myself a tiny bit to keep appearances. I am now standing a bit over 5'8", so slightly taller than Ron, who is already one of the tallest in our age group. Once I'm done I unlock the door and sit back down without opening it. I don't care to invite people in when I could just sit alone. I lean back, resting my eyes, waiting for Harry, Ron, and Hermione to find me. Or not, it isn't a big deal either way. After a few minutes, the train horns roar and it does the final call before taking off. Only a minute or two into travel I hear a knock at the door to the cabin. Come in. I say, confused as to why they knocked. A short blonde girl with straight hair and a big smile opens the door. She is holding a large stack of magazines with both hands. Would you like a copy of the Quibbler? I stare at the girl, confused. Sure. What is the Quibbler? I wonder to myself. Her smile brightens as she hands me one of the magazines from the stack she is carrying. She sets the stack on the seat across from me and sits down, looking at me with expecting eyes. I am now extremely confused but open the magazine labeled The Quibbler and start to read. Rather, I would if I could, as I try and read the letters rearrange themselves so I can't make sense of it. Why can't I read it? I ask, confused. There are runes in the pages. You have to read it upside down. She says as if it is the most normal thing in the world. I turn it upside down and sure enough the letters arrange themselves properly. So what is the point of that? She tilts her head. Of what? You know, making people read it upside down, I said, gesturing at the magazine. She smiles again. So people know it's a real copy of the Quibbler. But what if someone copies the runes as well? I speak the fairly obvious fault. She looks confused. Why would they do that? At her genuine confusion I give up. Never mind. So, what's your name? Are you a first year? She gives her bright smile again. I'm Luna Lovegood. A first year? I smile and nod. I'm Soren Black, a second year. I know. She says with a straight-faced smile. Before I think of something to say she picks up her magazines and walks out again. I pick the book back up and gaze at it again, confused. What just happened? I ponder to myself. What the fuck are Nargles? I mutter to myself. I keep reading it since it's better than sitting here bored. Luckily, after only a minute or two, the door is thrown open. Hermione stands in the doorway staring at me. Ron and Harry aren't with you? I stare at her, surprised at the sudden entrance. No? I'm sure they are somewhere on the train. This is the last cabin for the second years and I haven't found them yet. She says with concern in her voice. Crap. I stand up and walk past her. Let's go ask the twins. Why not Percy? He is a prefect. Hermione asks. I roll my eyes because if they did miss the train then Percy would for sure rat them out. Walking into the upperclassmen area we eventually find the twins sitting with Lee Jordan and someone I've never met nor care to. Hey George, did Ron and Harry get on with you to the train? We can't find them in the second year section. I make sure to ask George since Fred can't take anything seriously. George shrugs and Fred answers, no Lord Black, haven't seen them since we got to the station. Maybe they went on an adventure without us. Hermione and I head back to the cabin and sit down in defeat. I lean back and groan, well, that isn't good. Let's see if I can make up the points this year. I hope they at least don't make trouble. Chapter 63, Back at Hogwarts. After the train comes to a stop at the Hogsmeade station I make sure to be one of the front students out of the train. Before any of the first years make it to Hagrid I walk up to him and turn him away from the kids. He looks at me, grabbing his arm in confusion. You're not a first year anymore. And where's Harry? I roll my eyes at the thought and sigh. I know, I was wondering if you knew where Harry was. I guess not. Harry's gone missing. Hagrid says, pulling back aghast. Well, he wasn't on the train and I don't think he has any other way to get to the school. With another sigh, I continue, I have to go, make sure to keep an eye out. Hagrid nods his head as I start to walk away. I'll ask around for ya. As I get farther away I hear him start to yell, "First years gather her." I smile remembering my first year here as I make my way to the gates. As I reach the gates I see Professor Flitwick with a quill and a checklist. He smiles as he sees me approaching. "Ah, young Black." He looks through his checklist and marks off my name from his list but frowns as he does. "Where are your friends? Potter and Weasley haven't checked in and it's almost time to depart." Looking at my wry smile he just sighs and gestures me in. The gates are large cast iron with beautiful craftsmanship. The pathway itself is full of carriages being pulled by creatures I've never seen before but look oddly familiar. Hanging over the path are beautiful willow trees that seem to be avoiding getting in the way of the path growing to the sides. They are just barely tall enough to reach over the entire path, making a very aesthetic archway effect. Ignoring the beauty of the area I'm in, I step closer to the undead horse-looking things pulling the carriages. As I step closer the two on the carriage turn and look at me with as much curiosity as I'm staring at them with. I reach out my hand to pat the top of the closer one's head. It lowers its head to let me pet it but I pull back as I hear the door to the carriage open. Turning my head I see the frizzy brown-headed Hermione staring at me with annoyance in her eyes. "Why are you so late?" she says, taking a step out. I shrug. "I was talking to Hagrid, I wanted to know if he knew anything." She stares at my half-outstretched hand in confusion. "And what are you doing now?" I look back at her in confusion, about to pet an undead horse with wings. I gesture to the creature who is still looking at me expectantly. She tilts her head as if staring at a crazy man. She is about to say something but Flitwick walks up behind me. "So, you can see them, young Black," he says while looking at the undead horse in front of me. I nod. "Why can't Hermione?" He smiles. "These are thestrals, they can only be seen by people who have witnessed death. Despite their appearance, they are some of the kindest magical creatures known to the wizarding world." Realization dawns on my face. My wand core is made out of their tail hair. I knew they looked familiar, they were in the list of possible patroness. I finally reach my hand out to pat the top of the thestral's head. The thestral happily accepts the head pats, not too dissimilar to Lure. Its tail flicks to and fro to express its happiness. He looks confused at me. "I've never heard of a wand using their hair as a core. Quite unique, I would say. Sounds incredibly powerful for dueling, HMM. May I see it, your wand I mean?" Without looking away from my new buddy I reach into my robe and pull my wand from my shadows and hand it to him. He studies the intricate designs on the wand, tests the flexibility, and ponders why it's so long. He begins to mutter as he examines it. A long wand denotes the confidence and large personality of its wielder. Completely unyielding, showing the unwillingness to accept a change in partners. Thestral core could mean many things: kindness, strength, maybe even a connection to death itself. I nod along with what he says as it seems right. But his demeanor changes slightly when he is about to mention the wood. He turns a bit somber. "Black. You. Wood. Known amongst the dueling community as the most ruthless wood out there. You wood is known to be best at spells concerning life and death. Black you wood is the best at the latter. I've had many friends taken by this wood, but as I've always said, it's the person, not the wand." He hands me my wand back as I'm staring at him at this point, still petting the thestral. He smiles. "Although I say that, I trust you, young man, although your wand excels at taking life, it is also the best at giving it. If you so choose you could perhaps be a legend in the healer community. I'm sure Madame Pomfrey wouldn't mind showing you a few things." I nod. "Thank you, Professor, I'll think about talking to her." He smiles back as he raises his own wand to his neck and speaks in a loud voice. "Everyone in their carriages, we are departing soon." Hermione gestured for me to follow her into the carriage, to which I followed. Inside was much more spacious than the outside. Neville and Dean were sitting inside already on the big soft benches. I look at the what? No Seamus. Dean rolls his eyes. He is in another carriage with his girlfriend. He obviously looks a bit upset about being ditched. I smile and sit down, happy the annoying one isn't here. Hermione quickly sits next to me and in a quiet voice asks if you don't mind me asking why can you see thestrals. Before I can answer, Neville pipes up, "Are those the scary horses pulling the carriages?" Hermione and I look at him curiously while Dean looks confused. I gesture for Dean to look at me. "Thestrals can only be seen by people who have seen someone die." Dean's eyes widen. "Bloody, brutal." After a second he looks between Neville and me. "Wait, you can see them. How?" I gesture at Neville. "I'll share with the class if you do." I give him a reassuring smile. He sighs. I was at his deathbed when my granddad passed away. Hermione starts to speak up. I'm SOR. He waves his hand, brushing it off. It's fine, it happened a long time ago. I have moved past it. They all stare at me next. I give a small smile. I was there when my mother passed away. I wasn't lying, I was there when my first mother died. I was just too young to remember. What am I supposed to tell them? I brutally murdered my abusive father in my past life. Yeah, that ain't happening. Dean looks down as if relating, and Hermione looks like she is about to say something. I just hold up a hand. Let's talk about a less hard topic. Are you guys ready for dueling class? Did you all sign up? It was a resounding yes. Chapter 64, Start of the Second Year. The entrance ceremony went just about as expected. The only notable placements were Ginny being placed in Gryffindor, which was expected. The other one was the Quibbler girl, Luna Lovegood, who got placed in Ravenclaw, which was a bit unexpected. Then again, I don't really know her, so I wouldn't know her. At the end of the ceremony, however, I got a message from Hagrid that said to meet him after they had found Harry and Ron. Hermione read it over my shoulder and insisted on coming as well. Asterisk. As soon as the ceremony ends, Hermione and I head to the courtyard to meet Hagrid. As we step outside, we can see Hagrid pacing back and forth, obviously concerned about something. I call out to him first in a hushed yell, Hagrid. What happened? He looks at us with relief in his eyes. Finally. Harry and Ron. They flew some sort of car to Hogwarts. They were seen. Muggles. Saw them flyin', they might get expelled. Hermione's jaw drops as I slap my forehead. Those dullards, why did they take the car? What were they thinking? Hermione says, exasperated. I rub my temples as I think. I don't believe Dumbledore will expel them. Probably. Hermione looks at me confused. Why not? They could get in real trouble with the Ministry for this. I shake my head. Dumbledore owes Harry too much. Thanks for telling us, Hagrid. He nods. Not a problem, I gotta go feed Fang now. Don't you be getting in trouble now. As we turn to leave, I smile and say never. Once we get back to the dorms, there is still no sign of Ron or Harry. I can only assume they are getting a reprimanding by McGonagall. I shiver at the thought. Since it's almost bedtime, Hermione and I go our separate ways. I set up my desk and bed to be more comfortable like I did last year and just sat up reading. I was waiting for Ron and Harry so I could hear the story from them. I started by reading the ritual books to refresh myself, even though it wasn't long ago. After skimming it quickly, I move on to the Fidelius charm. I want to try to integrate multiple spells into one ritual. Hopefully, it isn't hard. After about 30 minutes, I move on to anti-apparition wards like the ones on Hogwarts. After another 30 minutes of reading about how to set up anti-apparition wards, I hear someone open the doors to the dorm room. I turn to see Ron and Harry walk in with sunken faces and dead eyes. So how was the drive? Smooth. I speak up, causing them to jump a little. You heard? Harry asks with a defeated tone. Yeah, I was asking around for you and Hagrid was nice enough to tell me what happened, I say with a knowing smile. Ron sighs. We'll be in detention till winter break. I swear that woman is evil. Humph, better than Snape at least. He wanted us expelled. Harry complains. I shrug. Makes sense, anyone else probably would have been expelled. McGonagall was being nice if you ask me. Ron shivers as I say her name. You weren't there, she was scary. I chuckle a bit at the fear in his eyes. You should go to bed, we have introductions to our classes tomorrow. Don't want to make McGonagall mad again, would you? Ron grunts and jumps on his bed face down. Harry just quietly walks over to his bed and sits on it. I sigh and pick up my schedule to see what we have tomorrow. Monday. 8 to 9 potions. 9:30 to 10:30 herbology. Lunch 10 to 12. 12 to 1 defense against the dark arts. 2 to 4 charm/dueling. Dinner 5 to 6:30. Tuesday. 8 to 10 transfiguration. Lunch 10 to 12. 12 to 1 charms. 1:30 to 3:30 dueling. Break. Dinner 5 to 6:30. Wednesday. 8 to 9 potions. 9:30 to 10:30 history of magic. Lunch 10 to 12. 12 to 1 transfiguration. Dinner 5 to 6:30. Astronomy 12 to 1. Thursday. 8:30 to 10:30 herbology. Lunch 10 to 12. 12 to 1. Defense against the dark arts. 1:30 to 2:30 transfiguration. Break. Dinner 5 to 6:30. Friday. 8 to 9 charms. 9:30 to 10:30 dueling. Lunch 10 to 12. 12 to 1 potions. 1 to 2 defense against the dark arts. Dinner 5 to 6:30. I sigh as I look at my busy schedule. I don't regret taking dueling, but it sure doesn't give me a lot of time to myself. Rolling over, I see Harry already covered in blankets trying to fall asleep, so I follow suit. Waking up early, I head to breakfast to find the Gryffindor table is nearly empty. I assume because people are not used to waking up thanks to the long break. The only face I notice is Ginny, so I decide to sit next to her. Morning, I say with a fairly genuine smile. As she turns to meet my eyes, I notice her hide a small book behind her bigger books. Odd, I think to myself, but I still continue to smile. Gee, good morning, Soren. She stutters out. Seeing how shy she is, I feel the need to tease her. Forgive me. I noticed despite living with Harry for a few weeks you never confessed to him. I feel like he wouldn't say no, why not just go for it? I speak with a devilish grin. Her face is dyed red, instantly causing me to let out a small laugh as I try to hold it in. He is just too nice. I look at her confused as to what she means. Maybe I'm just too dumb to understand women. May as well change the subject. So is the book you're hiding a diary? Keeping all the confessions in there? I grin, but my face quickly falls as I see her expression. When I mention the book, her face goes from red to pale. I'm baffled. What did I say? Is this the normal reaction from an 11-year-old girl? Am I that out of touch? I'm fucked. She quickly gets up, gathering her books and heading towards the door at a fast walk. Hell, it's nearly a jog. Did I scare her away? As I'm questioning myself, I feel a hand on my shoulder. I turn to see Hermione looking at me with judgmental eyes. Only a day and you're scaring poor girls away, she says, sounding genuinely surprised. I shrug with a wounded look. I don't know what I did. All I did was tease her a bit. Hermione rolls her eyes and sits down next to me, grabbing a plate. What, actually coming to eat, not just study? This is a first, I say with a small grin. She lets out a sigh. I didn't eat much yesterday, I was worried about Ron and Harry. And you just scared away a girl by teasing, and now you're right back at it. I grin wider. You're my friend though, you wouldn't just run away from some small teasing, right? Ugh. To my surprise, she picks up her plate and walks away to the end of the table. She sits with an older girl named Katie, I think. But this goes against all expectations. This isn't how it's supposed to go, right? Chapter 65, Second Year Classes, Potions/History. Seeing as Hermione is ignoring me and Ron and Harry are probably going to be late, I decided to head to potions first. Walking in, I notice that no one else is here yet. I just sit down and wait. I'm 20 minutes early anyway. I take a deep breath and sigh. Exhausted already, Black? A monotone voice rings out from me behind me. I turn in a start to see the greasy-haired hook-nose himself is behind me. I play off the scare with a smile. Better early than late, I figure. He stares at me blankly, unamused. Punctuality is a good trait. But perhaps you should find something to keep yourself busy, rather than just wasting time. He walks past me to the teaching podium, grabbing herbs, organizing them, and then starts looking through his bookshelf. I roll my eyes once he can't see me, but he speaks up. I don't expect lip. I stare at him, wondering how he knew. But quickly reply, I don't know. I think there is a value in being left alone with your thoughts for a while, I say, trying to sound stoic. He grunts, but there is more value in learning. His dry voice resounds a bit in the large room. Once he finishes speaking, he seems to find what he is looking for on the shelf and grabs it out, reading a bit out of it before nodding. Walking over to me, he sets it on the desk in front of me and looks at me with his ever blank face. I would suggest you do not waste your talents, young Black. Many would give everything to be in your place. He begins walking away as I look at the book. I turn and talk to his departing figure. What? To be an orphan? He doesn't say anything in reply to my joke, but he lets out a long breath. I think that was the closest I'll get to a laugh out of him. For now. After he is gone, I finally pick up the book and read the front cover, Potioneer's Legacy. My eyebrows raise as I read the title. I didn't have expectations when starting to read it, but I wasn't let down. It gave a detailed history of influential potions and who invented them, along with their stories. Not only that, but there were notes scribbled into the margins. I can only assume they're Snape's personal notes. The book is interesting enough for me not to notice that the room is quickly filling up. Hermione tapped my shoulder, pulling me back to reality for a moment as we exchange a quick greetings before going back to our books. She gets to class around 6 minutes before 8, which is still pretty early, but we both were reading books anyway, so I don't stop reading. I finally stop when Ron and Harry come in 1 minute before the class actually starts. They sit at the only open seats not far to my right. Snape walks back in at exactly 8 and immediately starts his monologue similar to last year, but this time he went over more of what we would be doing. I'm sure Hermione will be happy knowing what to study for, but she'll probably study everything anyway. The class goes by fairly fast since it was mainly listening to him talk while taking notes. Kind of boring, but better than actually doing work. Next is History of Magic, which I go to with Ron, Harry, and Hermione since I don't have to wait for them this time. Ron and Harry tell us that they had woken up only a few minutes before class and they practically ran there. I don't see why they mentioned it, that's what they usually do, although it is impressive how fast they made it to potions. Professor Binns, unlike Snape, is already sitting at his desk waiting for the room to fill up. I guess he doesn't mind waiting, you know, being dead and all. Also, unlike Snape, he lets us out early after we get done talking about the curriculum for the year and how the Muggle Wars affected magic. It was nice being let out early since that class cut into lunch hours, not that I really wanted to go to lunch at 10, but Harry and Ron didn't get to eat last night or this morning, so I'm sure they are hungry. As we sit down, a voice sounds behind us, Harry Potter. We all turn around to see a boy smaller than usual with dirty blonde hair holding a camera. He stands maybe 5'1", even smaller than the short Harry. Harry turns to him looking confused. Yes. The boy's face lights up. May I have an autograph? He nearly yells his words as he hands Harry a picture of himself with Lockhart and a quill. Harry looks taken aback but still says sure. And signs the photo. As he holds the photo as if holding a treasure, he asks again. Can I take a picture as well? Before he can answer, a flash happens and the kid walks away holding his camera and photo with a newfound swagger. Ron and I start laughing as Harry's face goes red. Looks like it won't be long before Harry gets a Fang Club. Ron laughs as Harry starts picking up food with a red face. From my right, I hear Hermione humph, which causes me to turn and face her. What? I say, looking at her yes sure expression. If anyone gets a Fang Club it would be you. She says all high and mighty. My brows furrow. What? Why me? She grabs my head and points it towards the Ravenclaw table, and I see 3 girls who look like 3rd or 4th years talking while looking at me with coy smiles. As they notice my gaze, they look away and start giggling to themselves. My chest swells a bit at a feeling of confidence I've never had. Well, I mean, they have good taste. I'm quite a catch. Tall, handsome, talented, mysterious, strong. I grin at Hermione with a confident wink. Ugh. Hermione and Ron both roll their eyes in sync, causing Harry to laugh. You're both just jealous of my fame, I say, grabbing myself a small amount of food. More like infamy, Hermione says under her breath. I'm cut off by the sound of an owl hitting the table at full speed. Ron sighs Errol, as he grabs mail from its talons. I told you, that bird is on its last leg. As she speaks, it hops up back to life and flies away. Oh, no, Ron mutters quietly as he unwraps a red envelope with his name on the front. From further down the table you can hear Seamus yell, "Look, Weasley's got a howler." Dean looks confused. What's a howler? Seamus grins. Just watch. I'm also confused since I've never seen a howler. I may vaguely know what it is, but I can't remember. Chapter 66, Second Year Classes, Transfiguration/Astronomy. As I'm trying to remember what it is, it comes to life. Ronald Weasley. Ah, I remember now. The seam of the letter opens and becomes a mouth and starts yelling at Ron in his mother's voice. You stole the car. Do you know what your father and I went through when we found it was gone? I wouldn't be surprised if you got expelled. I thought your father would die of shame going to work this morning. Oh yeah, his father probably got a heavy fine for it. As it continues to yell, I feel as though my respect for Mrs. Weasley is reaching new heights. Although the howler is annoyingly loud, basically everyone is covering their ears right now. I'm fine though, since Sin is covering them for me. We are absolutely disgusted at your lack of care. You and Harry could have died. Now your father is facing an inquiry at work and it's your fault. One more foot out of line and we will bring you straight home. As it finishes, it leaps from the table and bursts into flames, curling up and gently floating down. I turn to see the twins staring at me from the end of the table and look at Ron before looking back at me. We'll talk later, Fred mouths to me as I give a thumbs up. Seeing the thumbs up, they walk out of the Great Hall and I stare at the now face down Ron. The people around us are obviously talking about him, which makes him start hiding his face. I pat his back. Come on, it isn't that bad. Neville steps behind him and puts a hand on his shoulder and says, yeah, happens to me all the time. Ron looks up at him and they share a knowing nod. I peer past Ron to see Harry with a guilt-ridden face. Hermione stands up. I'm going to go study in the common room before Transfiguration. I nod as I look at the two troublemakers and sigh. I'll join you. I stand up with a grin. As I pass Ron, I place a hand on his back and say, it's not that bad, you could have been K*LLED, or worse, expelled. I speak with a high and mighty tone at the end. He gives a short laugh as Hermione rolls her eyes and starts walking faster. I smile as I follow behind, inviting Neville, Katie, and Dean to join us for study. Asterisk. Only Katie ended up accepting my offer to go study, presumably to hang out with Hermione, not me. We ended up going to the library to study in rather than the common room since we met Daphne Greengrass along the way. Katie really didn't want to study with a Slytherin, but I insisted and she relented fairly easily. Katie was fairly knowledgeable since she was a year older than us and got great grades. Daphne was the furthest behind, but that isn't fair since Hermione and I are so far ahead. The only subject Hermione is beating me in is Transfiguration and I don't know why. Compiling the spells for me is easy, but visualizing the action of changing it is incredibly hard. I guess I'm lucky. Shifting in and out of Dementor form is more of something I can do on a whim, with no magic involved. After studying for almost an hour, we all go our separate ways, and we make our way to the first class with McGonagall. Entering the class, we notice we are the first ones in, except McGonagall is already here in her cat form, sitting on top of a bookshelf near the entrance. Both of us greet her as we enter and sit in the middle of the classroom. I would prefer to sit in the back, but Hermione wanted to sit in front, so we compromised and sat a row back. Once everyone started showing up, Ron and Harry sat next to me, obviously feeling a bit better since lunch. The second class started. McGonagall scared everyone who didn't see her by jumping off the shelf while shifting forms. Ron was one who nearly jumped out of his chair and I could hear him mutter under his breath, bloody hell. Unlike Snape, who changed up from last year, Transfiguration was exactly the same. The second she started talking, we had to take notes and we got no information about what will come. Not to mention she gave us homework on the first day, a full parchment at that. After we get out of class, I end up going to the common room with Hermione, Neville, and Dean to finish the homework. It's always nice just to get the homework done immediately so I don't have to worry about it. In my last life, I would often do it at lunch since I sat by myself in the library. Later that day, I go up to the boys' dorms to see Ron and Harry already sleeping. I shake Harry to try and wake him up, to no avail. I pull the covers off of both the sleeping duo. I point my wand and Harry and Ron's faces. Augmenti. Water sprays from my wand, hitting both Ron and Harry in the face. Ron gets up quickly, screaming, "We are under attack!" as he flails his arms. Harry just gets up quickly, giving me a glare as he wipes off his face. The flail along with the angry glare makes me laugh, along with the stray Gryffindor in the room. Ron realizes it was a dream and stares at me with a blank look on his soaked face. His blank look causes me to laugh even harder. "What was that for?" he yells. I cough as I hold back my laughter. "We have class in a few minutes, we need to get going." Harry groans as he starts to put on his robe again. Meanwhile, Ron is sitting on his bed with a blank stare. "I don't want to go, it's almost midnight, I need to sleep." I look at the muggle wristwatch Arthur gave me and it stopped. I sigh as I turn to the magic clock on my desk. It reads 11:52. "Damn it, we are going to be late. Hurry up or I'm leaving you. You already have detention all year. Don't make it worse." Ron sighs as he quickly gets his robes on and we start running towards the observatory. As we almost reach the stairs, I see a familiar face out of the corner of my eye. "You two go without me." Ron and Harry don't even look back, already sprinting up the stairs. I roll my eyes as I walk at a brisk pace to catch up to the departing figure. Sure enough, when I get closer, it's Professor Sinistra. She is only a bit taller than me at 5'9", she has dark skin, and a cute face. She is the youngest professor at Hogwarts at only 26. "Professor Aurora," I shout as I'm only 15 or so feet away. She turns around with raised eyebrows and sharp eyes. "Professor what?" I clear my throat. "Professor Sinistra, sorry." She shows a small grin revealing perfect white teeth. "Sure you are, Soren. What do you need?" "Class is about to start soon." I pull out a random star chart from my notes and show them to her. "How do you read these stars? Would it be the same as the Merlin constellation?" She takes the chart and looks at them scrupulously. Mr. Black, you showed me the same chart last year, did you think I wouldn't notice? I start to sweat a bit. Sorry, I must have forgotten. She grins at my nervousness, mistaking it for something else. Now young Soren Black, if this is an attempt to seduce your teacher, you'll have to try harder than that. My face burns up as I blush. I would never. I just forgot. Her face tells me she obviously doesn't believe me. She sighs. Since you are already late to class, do you want to use the teacher-only chute with me? You may never get this chance again. Still blushing a bit, I nod. It does seem interesting. I've always wondered how she gets up the tower so fast. I thought she was always there before us, since she always walks from her office to greet us. Here. She points her wand at the wall and the stones separate. Behind the wall is a tube-like thing similar to an elevator. It's big enough to fit 4 people comfortably. I walk in beside her and just stand quietly. She waves her wand again and we are whisked upwards at blinding speed. When the force stops, we are standing inside the fireplace of her office. My eyes go wide. Awesome. She walks past me, opening the door to leave. Don't tell the other students. They may get jealous. She turns her head and gives me a wink. Am I the one being seduced? I wonder as I nod my head, following her out the door. There I see that almost the entire class sitting down already. As I go to sit in my area, Ron and Harry burst up the stairs panting like they just won a race. Mr. Potter, Mr. Weasley, late on the first day. Aurora says with an annoyed tone. Ron and Harry are too tired to reply, but their eyes go wide when they see me. I just smile and wave. Chapter 67, Second Year Classes, Herbology. The next day I decided to forego having breakfast. Today we have double herbology and the smells in there can make me feel nauseous. Not my fault, I have better senses than most. I walk into class by myself since I didn't see Hermione in the common room and I didn't want to be late like Ron and Harry. I'm one of the first in the class, but a few are already there. This one is a shared class with Slytherin. I find a face I recognize. Daphne, good morning. I smile as I sit next to her. She looks a bit taken aback. Good morning. I notice a small blush. I wonder if she is sick. I think to myself. Not with Draco and his gang today. I ask with a joking tone. She shakes her head. I don't really like them much, they are a nasty and cruel bunch. But my father just wants me to be friends with the purebloods. When I mentioned you and Harry, he completely forgot the Malfoy family is a thing. A smug grin adorns my face. Smart man. From behind me, I hear Hermione's voice. Good morning, Soren. I turn to see her sitting next to me. Mornin'. She notices Daphne next to me and greets her as well. Good morning, Daphne. Daphne nods and smiles. Good morning. I smile at them, a little happy that they have started to get along lately. I have adopted Daphne into our friend group, so I was worried she wouldn't get along well with the others. But against my thoughts, Harry and Hermione have taken to her, while Ron is still iffy. Hermione looks around before turning back to me. Where are Ron and Harry? I shrug. Not a clue. Is that okay? Won't they be late without you to get them out of bed? She asks, a bit concerned. Meh, I'm not here to babysit them. But I did try to wake them up, but they wanted to sleep more. I say dismissively. Although I did in fact come to Hogwarts to babysit Harry, I'm not going to coddle him. Sure enough, Ron and Harry show up less than a minute before class starts. Most of the seats are already taken, so they are forced to stand at the ends of the potting tables. When Professor Sprout walks in the room, she brings an air of happiness despite the early morning. It's a bit suffocating, honestly. Even the bright yellow shirt under her robe seems to give an air of happiness. Alrighty class, open your books to page 54, we will be discussing mandrakes. Her high-pitched voice pierces through the classroom. The next hour was just discussions about mandrakes that I already knew. It was one of the things I studied extensively in Sid's lab. I noticed that despite seeming ditzy, Daphne was incredibly well read. It seems odd for her to be smart and blonde. Mandrakes have a niche use but are incredibly effective. I am a good example. Once we got to the topic of animagus, I began to wonder if I can get an animal form. It would be quite fun to try. I should do it later this year, maybe the end of the school year. I probably won't have one, right? I ponder to myself. That's enough discussion for now. Come now class, to the greenhouse. I will be showing you how to repot mandrakes without getting K*LLED horribly. She says with a cheerful smile. Inside the greenhouse, I stood between Daphne and Ron with Harry and Hermione on the ends. Across from me are 2 Slytherin girls, whom I don't know, are tagging along with Neville and Seamus. My eyebrows raise as I see how close he is to the Slytherin girl I see, his girlfriend is from the Slytherins. Odd with how stupid he is. Make sure you have your earmuffs on securely. Professor Sprout practically yelled. Putting mine on, I watch as she takes the baby mandrake out of the pot, putting it in the other. The mandrake gives a ghastly shriek that I've never heard before. I can even hear the screaming mandrake clearly through the earmuffs. Once in the pot, she quickly moves the soil on top of it, patting it down solidly. Only once the soil is firmly down, does the mandrake quiet down. She didn't do anything unique. I don't see the difference from potting a normal plant. I wonder at the simplicity of the task. All right. Now it's your turn, class. Go ahead. I hear her muffled yell through the earmuffs. I watch quietly as everyone except Daphne firmly pulls out the mandrakes, causing them to screech loudly. Neville even faints while staring at the mandrake he pulled out. The Slytherin girl that was next to him starts giggling at him. Longbottom's fainted. Professor Sprout, ... Seamus yells. She rolls her eyes, must have neglected his earmuffs. He looks at Neville, then back at her and shakes his head. Nope, he's just passed out. The two Slytherin girls laugh while one goes down to help Neville. Ah. I see. Help him to the infirmary then, off you go. She says, shooing him away. Finally, I look at my still potted mandrake as I softly grab the stems, wiggling it softly as I free it from the dirt. My hand is placed at the top of its head with my palm softly holding the back of its head. Once completely free of the dirt, the mandrake doesn't scream, instead it just stares at me oddly. I see Hermione out of the corner of my eye. She is staring at me with wide eyes. Daphne is observing my hands and how I pulled out the mandrake and does the exact same thing. Her mandrake is the exact same, calmly staring at her as she holds it. My gods! 20 points to Gryffindor, 20 points to Slytherin. Marvelous! Professor Sprout yells enthusiastically. I smirk a bit as I start replanting the mandrake with Daphne doing the exact same. I look over at Hermione, who is slack-jawed, with a superior look in my eye. Ha, bet she didn't know that trick. I think to myself, not daring to say aloud lest I be hit with a non-potted mandrake. After that, we started watering the mandrakes as even that had a procedure. Just like last time, Daphne follows what I do exactly. I don't know why, as there really isn't much variation you can do in watering a plant. That's all for today's class. Be sure to take care of your earmuffs, you will need to take care of these mandrakes all year. She says as she starts to pack up her materials. I look at Daphne as I take off my earmuff, quite the follower I see. Her face turns red as I point out her copying. I thought you looked like you knew what you were doing. I give her a smile as I follow Ron and Harry out the door. On the way out, I see Draco looking at Daphne with an angry face, but he turns away the second I meet his eyes. I stop and stare at him for a second before I keep walking. I wonder if I should punish him. Pushing the thoughts away, I finally walk out to head to lunch. I'm pretty hungry since I didn't eat breakfast. Hermione and Daphne follow behind closely. Although it's frowned upon, there is no rule against sitting at other tables. Seamus and the twins are good examples. Chapter 68, Second Year Classes, ... As we were leaving the Great Hall, the twins spot me and start heading over. I tell the group to go on without me while I watch them approach me. I smile at them. Hey! Have you guys already had your defense against the dark arts class? Fred rolls his eyes while George sighs. Yeah, it was dreadful. Twin 1 says. We had a test on the first day. Says Twin 2. And it was about Lockhart. He gave us a test, about him. Twin 1 says with frustration. Are you guys still going to do the pranks on him for sickles? I made sure to bring plenty. I say, a bit exhausted, not looking forward to class. Greed fills their eyes. Fred speaks up first. Of course, who do you think we are? We got a surprise for you when you go to class. George says with a smug grin. My eyebrows raise. What kind of surprise? Fred grabs George's and my shoulders and pulls us close, whispering, the smelly kind. I chuckle a bit as I reach into my robes and pull out a single galleon and hand it over to Fred. George quickly snatches it with a funny grin, wrapping his arm around Fred. Fred looks at me confused. I thought you said 10 sickles. George elbows his stomach. Hey, no need to correct him. I just pat his shoulder. It's a bonus for doing it on the first day. Not only that, but also giving me a front row seat. They exchange smirks. It's been a pleasure doing business with you. George says, not looking away from the galleon. Fred gives me an exaggerated salute. Till next time, Captain. Without another word, they both happily stroll away. Never a dull moment. I think to myself. Walking into defense against the dark arts, I see Draco harassing Daphne and Harry with Crabbe and Goyle at his sides. As I'm walking up behind him, Draco, I can hear him. Traitor who would rather sit with 2 orphans than the true pure-blood families. Draco's grin turns to Harry. Didn't I warn you about associating with the wrong crowd? Now you poach one of my own. He sounds a bit bitter. As I'm standing behind the 3 idiots, I grab Crabbe and Goyle's heads from behind. With a forceful yank, I smack their heads into Draco's, causing them to all fall down. I smirk at the 3 Stooges' role play that they are doing so well. Looking up at me, their eyes widen in fear. I am honestly not that interested in getting back at them, but if they continue it could really hurt Daphne. I glare at the 3 Stooges on the ground. Go sit down. Annoy Daphne again and you'll be bald for the rest of your life. I can see the already balding Goyle gaze upon me in fear. They all hold their heads while scurrying away, not standing up. Ignoring them, I sit down between Hermione and Daphne with Harry and Ron on the other side of Daphne. Daphne thanks me and Harry glare at the running Malfoy. As Malfoy gets to his table, our professor walks in the door. He gives them a glance but ignores them as he heads towards his desk with purpose. Gilderoy Lockhart, the man of the hour. He is wearing turquoise robes with no hat and a wide smile on his face. He stands at the front of the class with a roguish smile on his face. His eyes meet Harry's and he gives a nod as if they have some type of shared burden. He steps forward once we are all sitting and picks up the book with his face on it off the desk. He points at the book with a wink me. His smirk turns toothy. Gilderoy Lockhart, Order of Merlin, 3rd class, honorary member of the Dark Force Defense League, and 5-time winner of Witch Weekly's Most Charming Smile Award. I begin to wonder how he was acknowledged by the Wisengamot as I ignore his dumb speech, but something catches my eye from the corner of his desk. It is a coffee mug with the letters F and G written on it. I finally smile as I look back at the poor Lockhart. I hope they didn't use fart beans to brew the coffee itself. Just last period my 2 favorite students brought me my favorite coffee. They must be great fans as it's rare for people to know I only drink Americano. A Muggle-style coffee. He speaks snobbishly as he smirks, taking a sip of coffee. Now class, we shall start with a test. He picks up a stack of papers from his desk as the class resounds in a sigh except for Hermione. I don't want to hear it, it's a fantastic test, and it should be easy. You have 30 minutes starting now, he says as he hands the final paper to Ron. I shrug as I flip over the paper and read the first question. What is Gilderoy Lockhart's favorite color? What is Gilderoy Lockhart's secret ambition? How am I supposed to know a secret ambition? I rage in my mind while flipping the pages. 54 questions. I set my head down and sigh, this will be a rough year for defense against the dark arts. I start by writing the ones I know, and scheming the ones I don't. After a few minutes pass, I smell the first whiff of disgusting victory. I look up to see Lockhart reading a book with a slightly red-tinted face. A few minutes go by and students are starting to complain of the smell, causing me to smile. Lockhart is now holding his hand over his stomach, softly rubbing it. Only a few seconds later and I am forced to use sin to cover my nose because of the smell. Students are talking amongst themselves and I can hear their conversations. Is there a dead animal in the pipe? A Slytherin asks quietly. Hermione and Daphne are coughing and covering their faces with their robes. At this point Lockhart quickly stands up, holding his bottom, looking around at the now confused class. Finish the tests before I get back. Remember, no cheating. He tries to give a charming smile but fails as he practically runs out of the room. Once the door slams shut I burst out into laughter, causing most people in the near quiet room to look at me funny. What's so funny? Hermione asks. I stop laughing but still hold my stomach, giggling a bit. The twins gave him fart bean coffee. But I think they gave him too much. Once I finish my words Hermione looks disgusted but a lot of the boys start laughing. I wasn't quite when I spoke, so now half the second years know of the twins' great feat. After a solid few minutes, I'm finally done laughing and I scoot closer to Hermione with a purpose. So, what's the answers to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 13, 15, 18, 23, 26, 31, 34, 41, 42, 45, 47, 49, 50, and 54? I ask with a cheeky grin. Alternate chapter name, Gilderoy Fartlock. Chapter 69, Recruiting the Hogwarts Mafia. The class ended without Lockhart coming back, so we ended up leaving our tests on the table for him to collect. Hermione didn't let me copy but Daphne did, a true comrade to the cause. I'm a bit surprised Daphne knew so much about him, but I guess he is popular. Hermione almost refused to leave without handing in her test properly, but I ended up convincing her. She was scared when I mentioned we could be late to Transfiguration and would lose both attendance grade and house points. The rest of the day was pretty boring as nothing was different with Transfiguration. What I was really excited about was the first day of dueling class. The only other notable thing of the day was Daphne didn't sit with us at dinner. After that, we had another tournament to determine the king of chess. I was knocked out in the first round. Dean and Ron battled it out with Ron winning with only a queen and a pawn left. Asterisk. The next morning I sat in the common room reading one of Sid's books named Post-Mortem. It is still an hour before class begins and I am planning to go to breakfast soon. Much to my surprise, Ron, Harry, and Dean all come downstairs at the same time. Soren, you were still here? Harry asks. Before I can answer, Dean speaks up. We were planning on going to meet you at the Great Hall for breakfast. Oh, cool. But why are you three up so early? There is still a while before class. I ask. Ron steps forward, obviously excited because we have dueling class today. Realization dawns on my face as I nod. Ah, of course, that is exciting. Why aren't Seamus and Neville coming? Harry and Dean laugh. They didn't sign up for dueling. Neville's grandma didn't let him and Seamus's parents didn't sign off on it, saying it was too dangerous. Harry says while Ron has a wicked grin behind him. That sucks. I say as I stand up, putting the book in my moleskin pouch. Let's go then. They all start to follow, but Harry stops and asks, where's Hermione? Who cares? We are with the boys. Ron chimes in. I roll my eyes at Ron. She left for breakfast a few minutes ago. She wanted to study while she ate. Of course she does, Ron mutters while Harry and Dean chuckle at her predictability. By the way, Dean, how did Seamus get to know a Slytherin girl? I ask as we make our way through the 4 flights of ever-changing set of chairs. He shrugs. I think he mentioned that they were friends as kids. They met again after a long time at his birthday party. Their mothers know each other, I think. They both work in the ministry together or something. Who needs girls anyway, Ron mutters to himself. I myself don't really care about women or relationships at this point in my life. I would rather just have friends. What about you, Harry? What do you think about girls? Perhaps first years, perhaps redheads, maybe a bit short, and might I be related to your friend? My eyes move between Ron and Harry as I speak. Harry looks at me confused while Ron gives me a knowing side eye. I shake my head at Harry. Perhaps he doesn't even know what I mean yet. He is only 12 after all. Dean pipes after the look of realization flashes on his face. Oh, you mean Ginny? Yeah, she is kind of cute. I smack the back of his head off limits. He holds the back of his head while looking at me like I shot his dog in front of him. What was that for? Ron gives a nod as I speak up again. Off limits. No more questions. As I finish my sentence, we enter the Great Hall. There are quite a few people there for a change, mostly Slytherin and Gryffindor. They are probably also excited for dueling. Harry points to the end of the Gryffindor table. There are Hermione and Daphne. I sit down between the two of them. Daphne smiles as she scoots over to give me room while Hermione just stares at me with a slight scowl. Why do you insist on sitting between the two of us? Hermione asks, slightly annoyed. I smirk. Why would I want to sit next to one beauty when I could sit between two? I say with a joking tone. Daphne blushes and looks away while Hermione humphes with a red tinge on her face. I smile seeing their reactions. Perhaps I'm teasing too much. I wouldn't want them to start developing feelings for me. So Daphne, did you end up signing up for dueling class? I heard we have a shared class with Slytherin. I ask, trying to change the subject. She smiles with a still red face. Yes, Father said it would be best if I learned how to duel. He said being good at fighting is a pure blood trait. Hermione scoffs. Sounds like a load of malarkey. Your father sounds awful, no offense. Daphne gives a wry smile. Yet, he wants to marry me off to another pure blood family. He only thinks of me as a tool. My brows raised in interest. Which noble house? Not many have children our age. Her face dyes red as she looks at me for a second before looking away again. Ah, I see. I say with a slightly blushing face as I turn away. Hermione slaps my shoulder and looks at Daphne with sympathetic eyes. Well, I think that's awful. Don't worry, none of us here would let that happen. Her eyes go over the other boys who all nod. Not many of the pure blood families like us anyway. One more enemy means nothing, Ron says with a confident grin. Is being disliked something to brag about? I ponder to myself. Harry nods and Dean gives a thumbs up and extends out a hand to Daphne. I'm Dean Thomas, by the way. Daphne shakes his hand with a confused smile. Daphne Greengrass. I notice that the book Hermione is holding is the charms book I got her, and I see my opportunity to change the topic. Why are you studying charms? I hear the trio of boys behind me agree with a small and sync yet. Hermione sighs. I know you boys are excited for dueling, but you can't forget we have charms. Dueling starts right after charms. All four of us have a taken aback look. Did you all just forget? Hermione chides. Harry rubs the back of his head kind of. I just shrug. You three should head back and grab your books a few minutes early, I tell the three. Dean's eyes narrow. You don't have it either though. I gesture at my moleskin bag. I got it. He looks confused, but Hermione clarifies it's a moleskin bag. It has a small subspace in it about 100x larger than its appearance. His jaw drops. That's awesome. Where can I get one? You can't. They are bloody expensive. Not to mention they are only sold to members of the noble houses as well as some rich ministry officials. Ron says, sounding a bit envious. Dean looks a bit bummed out but fine nonetheless. Ron, however, looks at his cracked wand. Wish I could fix this, too bad wands are expensive. I'll pay for it if you want to be my independent contractor like your older brothers, I say with a small smirk. Ron looks interested. What does that mean? Hermione looks at Ron with a bit of worry. Don't do it, that's his way of saying, servant. I give her a glare before turning back to Ron. We can talk about it later. Chapter 70, Second Year Classes, Charms. After eating lunch, Hermione, Daphne, and I head to Charms together. It's a good thing half of our classes are shared with Slytherin. Although it means we run into Malfoy more often, I think Daphne as a friend outweighs the negative. Walking into Charms a few minutes early, I'm surprised to see almost half the classes already here. They are all chatting even between houses. They are talking about what they think will happen in dueling class. Sitting down, I pull out my books and look at Hermione. I kind of feel bad for the professor. The class will be more focused on dueling than charms. But I guess there are quite a few charms used in dueling. Hermione shrugs. Nothing we can do about it. I hope the class goes well though. A few minutes later, Harry, Ron, Dean, Seamus, and Neville show up. Neville and Seamus look depressed as they slump behind the other three. Their girlfriends are obviously also in this class, but they are already sitting with friends. I wonder if they signed up for dueling? I wave at them to show them where we are. Harry sits next to me since Hermione didn't let me sit between her and Daphne. Which is fine since I was only joking earlier. The discussion of the dueling class goes on with the scattered complaints of people who either didn't sign up or the people who got denied. Only seconds before the start of class does Flitwick walk in with a happy smile on his face, obviously excited for the class as well. He stands in front of the class on his heightened stool at the podium and sets down his book. Today, in light of our first dueling class in so many years, I will be teaching you the shield charm. This may seem like more of a dueling class than charms, but I'm sure none of you will care, correct? The room is filled with kids pecking like chickens, nodding their heads and sounds of approval. The class clamors again in delight and some in dismay. Flitwick lifts his book high, letting it smack on the podium, making a loud thump, quieting the class. Protego is one of the oldest spells in existence. It is also incredibly pliable. There are only 3 spells it cannot block in the right hands. Do any of you know the 3? Flitwick asks with eyes wandering over the class. Hermione and I put up our hands, with Hermione vigorously throwing it up, wanting to be called. Flitwick's eyes landed on me. Mr. Black, why don't you tell us? I stand up as I speak. There are actually 4, Professor. His eyebrows raise at my words and a smile grows on his face. There are the 3 unforgivable, the Cruciatus Curse, the Imperious Curse, the K***ling Curse, and the one Professor Snape became famous for in the war. I pause dramatically as a few students gasp, but I continue looking at Flitwick with a fairly serious face. 10 points to Gryffindor, an additional 10 if you remember the name of Snape's curse. He says, smiling while pulling out his papers. That would be Sectum Sempra. The curse of the eternal cut. As I finish my words, I sit back down. Flitwick claps his hands. Fabulous, 20 points to Gryffindor. It is such a niche curse I didn't even think of mentioning it. Yes, those are the 4 curses you must avoid at all costs. We will not be learning about them here, but you must know how to defend yourselves. Protego is most effective when you know what the enemy is casting. For example, if your opponent is casting Stupefy and he verbally casts it, you should focus on strength. If they cast Conf Ringo, you should focus on reflection. If it's Expelliarmus, you should protect your hand well. If you fail to predict properly, your shield may break and you could get hurt. This does not hold true if your opponent is considerably more powerful. If they are, they will be able to easily block any spell you throw at them. A random Gryffindor raises her hand and Flitwick points to her. What are we supposed to do then? Just give up? No, my dear. You have to catch them off guard. It may be with a good reflection or more commonly with a chain cast. I know at least one student in this room who can chain cast. His eyes fall on me, which surprises me a bit. The old man told him about me. My thoughts fall on Dumbledore for a second but are pulled away by the girl. What exactly is chain casting? She asks. Flitwick ponders for a second but his eyes fall back on me. Young Soren, why don't we give them a demonstration? I nod my head. Of course, Professor. I stand up and walk to the main corridor of the room. The center area is about 5 feet wide, more than enough safe distance from other students. Flitwick walks out from behind his desk, standing about 15 feet away from me. All right now, class. While I want you to see a chain cast, I also want you to watch how I block it. He faces me as he pulls out his wand. Now send a chain spell at me. I will block it without reflecting, so you won't have to worry. I pull out my wand, pointing it at him. Then I will begin, Professor. He nods. Stupefy. Expelliarmus. I chain the spells, sending them both out in swoop down and then a small flick. With a soft wave of his wand, Flitwick says Protego. And blocks the first one. Then he does a quick swipe, blocking the second one, swatting it like a fly to the ground. Excellent job. I didn't expect a different spell for the second one. You would have had me if I was a lesser wizard. He says humbly. I give a wry smile, knowing he used no effort blocking my spells. You may sit down. He turns to the class now. Did you all see how I used Protego? First I nullified his Stupefy, and then I chantlessly used it to deflect the Expelliarmus. If I did not know how to chantlessly cast Protego, even I would have been hit. By using a fluid motion to cast multiple times, you can catch an opponent off guard. That being said, if you are good enough at the shielding charm, you will not be hit. Once you get to higher levels of dueling, you will find your opponent's false casting. That's when you chant one spell but actually cast another. Once you master Protego, you will have an immeasurable advantage in dueling, class, he says with a more serious face. Once you have mastered it, I will begin to teach you how to change the spell further to better fit your situation. Hopefully, that will be before the end of the year. I laugh to myself as I have already gotten close to mastering Protego. It was the first charm I ever tried hard to learn. Hell, I can cast it chantlessly almost at will with an 80% success rate. I have never tried modifying it. I would like to try it eventually. But we will see in dueling, class. Chapter 71, Second Year Classes, Dueling I. Towards the end of class, Flitwick has us all practice Protego. Most of the class gets it first try, since it is a rather simple spell. Whether they did it well has yet to be seen. Once class ends, the people who aren't in dueling leave and the rest head into the room connected adjacently. The room is long with a stage on it and seats surrounding it. It is a dueling arena. I have seen one in the paper once, an article about the dueling championship. Flitwick walks up the steps, standing on the stage looking at all of us sitting down. He pulls out a long parchment and starts calling names. Once he gets done, he looks around. It appears everyone is here. Class doesn't start for another 25 minutes. Why don't we play a game? A resounding cheer echoes through the room. Ron and Harry nearly jump up and down like all the other students. There are 16 of you, so split into groups of 4, we will do a small dueling tournament. He says, clapping his hands again. Harry, Ron, Dean, and Hermione form a group as I pull Daphne away to the Slytherins. I want to make Daphne some friends so she isn't an outcast to her own house. The team we ended up with was Theodore Nott, Blaise Zabinai, Daphne, and me. So 3 Slytherin and me. 3 purebloods and a half-blood? This will be simple. Blaise says with a smug grin. Everyone else in the group rolls their eyes. I hold my hand out to Theodore Nott. I am Soren Black, nice to meet you. He shakes my hand with a small smile. I'm Theodore Nott, you can just call me Theology. I've heard of you. Snape says you're the only one in the class even close to my grade, I say with a grin. What? Does he talk to you about grades? That's obvious favoritism. Zabinai speaks up in an arrogant voice. I ignore him and talk to Theo. Are you looking to pursue potions in the future? A professional apothecary. He ponders for a second. I don't know. I just find it fun. Isn't that what most people want? To have a job that they just find fun. I say with a small grin. He shrugs. I suppose you're right. I gesture over to Daphne. This is my friend Daphne. I hope you get along. He nods at her. We have met many times. Most of our families get together at least 5 times a year. I know almost all the pureblood children that way. That sounds typical. I notice you aren't friends with Malfoy, why not? I ask, ignoring Zabanai's small protests. I don't particularly care for pureblood supremacy. Not to mention, he is kind of an asshole. He says with a small grin. PFT, haha, I will admit I didn't expect that. I agree though he is. I turn to see Daphne covering her mouth with a hand to hide her giggle. At this point, Zabanai has a permanent scowl from us ignoring him. I just smile at his annoyance as Flitwick looks like he is about to speak. I turn back to him. All right class, gather around, Flitwick speaks up with a cheery call. Remember this is only a game till we start class again. There will be only 3 rounds, winners move on. He points around the room. You are team 1, you are 2, you are 3, and you are 4. Each round will be 5 minutes long. You are only allowed to use Immobilis, Petrificus Totalis, and Expelliarmus. If you don't know any of these spells you are to guard for your team. If your wand leaves your hand or you are rendered immobile you will lose and you must step down. The last team up or the team with the most after 5 minutes will win the round. You have 2 minutes to talk amongst your team, then we will begin with teams 4 and 1. He says as he claps his hands softly walking down the steps. I turn to face the others. We are team 3 so we still got a lot of time. Do all of you guys know the basic dueling spells? I know all of them, Theo says. Zabanai looks smug as he looks at Daphne. I know Petrificus Totalis. I'm also good at defense. I know Expelliarmus. I'm not sure about defense though, I've never really blocked anything. She says, obviously lacking confidence. Aren't you like the strongest person in the first years? I heard you beat a troll last year. Theo said curiously. Yeah, I actually *LLED it, I say matter-of-factly. Their eyes go wide, especially Zabanai's. That rumor was true. Yeah, my friends were in danger so I *LLED it. It wasn't that big of a deal. They all look at me with exhausted faces. As expected of a head of a pure-blood house. Even a half-blood can do these kinds of things. Zabanai mutters under his breath. Theo rolls his eyes. How did you defeat it? You were only a first year? Not to mention we had a useless teacher last year. I laugh a bit. Quarrel was indeed useless. My older sister is an Auror. She has been studying under Shacklebolt since the incident with Moody. She taught me magic before I even entered Hogwarts. Theo tilts his head. Sounds illegal to learn such dangerous spells so early. Daphne rolls her eyes. All our pure-blood families do it. Zabanai laughs a bit. Of course we do. It is the privilege of being born with better blood. The 3 of us give an exhausted sigh. So back to the game. I think I will stay on defense unless I am the last standing. Theo looks confused. Why? I smirk. It would be too easy if I attacked. They all look at me with a skeptical gaze, but before they can say anything the professor speaks up again. Teams 1 and 4 come to the stage. Team 1 on my side, Team 4 opposite. He says as he stands at one end on a stepping stool to be taller than the stage. I turn to see Ron, Harry, Dean, and Hermione stepping up with Draco, Crabbe, Goyle, and Pansy Parkinson standing opposite them. Draco crosses his arms as he stands in front. Are you ready to meet your father, Potter? He spits his last word. Harry's eyes narrow as he readies his wand. At least my father loved me, Malfoy. Malfoy's face turns grim as he pulls out his wand along with the rest of his posse. Enough of that. Ready your wands. You may begin once I say duel. Flitwick speaks up, annoyed at the boys' banter. Both teams back up and ready themselves. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Duel. Chapter 72, Second Year Classes, Dueling 2. Immobilis Expelliarmus. Immobilis. Draco, Crabbe, and Goyle were the first to strike. Hermione steps forward, deflecting the Immobilis back at Draco, who ducks to avoid it. Both Dean and Harry frantically dodge the spells with sidesteps while Ron steps forward. Pointing his wand directly at the kneeling and defenseless Draco, he casts Expelliarmus. His wand glows, but as the magic touches the cracked portion the spell backfires. With a bright flash, Ron is flung off the stage, flying right towards me. With a quick sidestep, I avoid him falling on me. Not wanting to be a total dick, I have my shadows catch his head so he doesn't hurt something. Ugh. Ron groans as he lays on the floor holding his stomach. Ron! Harry yells in concern. I shoo him to stay on stage. He is fine, just hurry up and win. Harry nods as he turns back to the Slytherin squad. Expelliarmus. Hermione follows suit. Petrificus totalis. Dean simply steps forwards ready to block for someone. Protego Pansy blocks Harry's spell that was going for Draco while Crabbe tries to dodge the petrification spell. His large body isn't very nimble so he gets hit while sidestepping, causing him to fall over like a sack of potatoes. Goyle kicks him down the stairs out of the way while he fires back Immobulus. Draco fires as well. Expelliarmus. Protego Dean blocks Goyle's spell as he moves his wand back down. Expelliarmus hits him and his arm is flung into the air, sending his wand flying. Dang! Dean quickly jogs down the stairs to grab his wand. Hermione and Harry step closer to each other. Expelliarmus they both cast at the same time. Immobulus Draco casts as Pansy blocks for him again. Expelliarmus Goyle casts, meeting Harry's spell mid-flight, forcing Harry to not back off. A clash of red light ensues. As the spells clash, Harry's eyes go wide, seeing Draco's spell heading to him. Protego. To both of our surprises, Hermione steps in front of him, blocking the spell. Unlucky for Harry, the diverted attention gave Goyle a chance to win the contest of magical strength. Harry turns back to Goyle to see Goyle's beam approaching him at a rapid pace. Before he can raise a resistance, Harry's arm is flung into the air and his wand is sent flying. He looks at Hermione as he turns to leave. Sorry. From across the room, I hear Draco laugh. Pathetic, Potter. Hermione sighs as she looks at the three still standing Slytherin. She takes a defensive stance as she readies her wand. Expelliarmus Immobulus Expelliarmus, all three cast at the same time. Seeing the spells coming at her, Hermione gets low to the ground, dodging two as she protegos the third. Before they can cast again, she points her wand to the center of the three. A powerful blue light envelopes her wand. Immobulus. She used magical power to spread the spell wide enough to envelop all three of them. Protego Pansy blocks the spell while Draco and Goyle both become weightless and floaty while slowly falling to the ground. Expelliarmus. Pansy casts at the still kneeling Hermione. The tired Hermione raises her wand to defend herself but is too slow. Just like the two before her, her arm is flung to the side as he flies from her hand. The room is quiet as everyone stares at the narrow win with wide eyes. Team 4 wins. Flitwick's voice pierces the quiet room. Cheers erupt in the small room, Slytherin and Gryffindor alike. Flitwick quickly unfreezes the three bigots while Pansy is receiving a warm welcome from the Slytherins. Hermione comes down the stairs with a downtrodden face. But against her expectations, she receives a warm welcome from the Gryffindor kids. That was awesome. How did you do that? One girl asks. I roll my eyes and go get her wand since she is busy getting popular. After picking up her wand, I go back to where I was standing waiting for the crowd to clear. I stand next to Ron, who is now just sitting on the floor with an upset look on his face. It's my fault. He says quietly. Yes, yes it is, I say with no remorse. Ron gives me a glare as I smile back at him. But you couldn't have known your wand would backfire, Dean speaks up, defending Ron. I nod. Indeed. It is your fault, but that doesn't mean you caused it. In the end, this is just a game. Ron looks at me while rubbing his head, says the one with the best odds here. I smile. Want me to humiliate them? Yes, Dean and Ron answer in sync. I smile. Then just wait for the final round. Teams 2 and 3 come to the stage, Flitwick says, standing back on his stool. I walk up to the stage, handing Hermione her wand as I pass her. Once we all get to our side, I stand behind the other three and sit down slumped over with my elbows on my knees lazily. The team standing across from us is made up of 3 Gryffindors and 1 Slytherin. I have no idea who any of them are. That being said, I only note the names of important people. They look at me with a glare since I'm obviously not taking them seriously. Seeing their anger, I just smile at them and wave. Flitwick raises his hand. All right, you may begin when I say duel. Mr. Black, are you going to sit? I wave my hand. Don't mind me. He sighs. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Duel. Petrificus totalis. Theo casts the very second the round starts, catching them off guard. The front guy drops to the ground with a shocked look on his face. Zach. The person next to him yells. As I sit there, I think to myself, Zach? Do we have someone named Zach in our house? He must really be a side character. The three remaining look angry as they all cast at once Expelliarmus Immobilis Expelliarmus. Theo and Zabanai easily block their spells as Daphne closes her eyes and casts Protogo, swatting the spell into the ground. Once they deflect the spells Zabanai and Daphne cast at the same time while Theo watches. Petrificus Totalis Expelliarmus. The spells are readily blocked by the other team, but as they begin their Protogos, Theo raises his wand. Taking a page out of Hermione's book, a powerful blue light radiates off his wand. Immobilis. Just like Hermione, a large wave of blue light rushes at the three standing. The two blocking ones are caught off guard, falling slowly while glowing in a slightly blue light. The last one standing is a girl I don't recognize. She blocked the blue light at the last second and looked defenseless. With no remorse, Zabanai raised his wand, Petrificus Totalis. Almost instantly the girl is frozen as she falls hard onto one of her slow-falling friends. The room is quiet in surprise of how easily we just won, but just like last time, Flitwick's voice cuts the silence. Team 3 is the winner. There will be a short break, then the final round will begin. He says with a raised hand towards our side. As I stand up, I put my arms around the three in front of me and whisper to them. Daphne's face goes red as she nods, while Theo and Zabanai get wicked smiles as they nod as well. I turn to Flitwick as I speak. The break won't be necessary. He looks at the other three in my group. Are you fine with that? They all nod as he shrugs. Fine. Team 4, stand opposite Team 3. The Draco squad look confused as they walk up to the dueling platform. Flitwick sighs. You know the drill, you may begin when I say duel. He sighs. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Duel. Before anything happens, Daphne, Theo, and Zabanai all jump off the stage as I pull out my wand and face the confused four. A grin shows on my face as I speak. Are you ready to be humiliated? Chapter 73, Second Year Classes, Dueling 3. I smile at the angry look on Draco's face. I doubt I would lose, but even if I did, that humiliation is totally worth it. He gestures at Crabbe and Goyle to stand at both of his sides as he aims his wand at me. Before they can do anything, I cast first Expelliarmus, Expelliarmus. I chain two spells at Crabbe and Goyle since I know they are both awful at defense. Pansy hops in front of Crabbe Protogo. She deflects my spell back at me, but I don't move as I see it will miss anyway. Goyle is not so lucky. He tries to cast Protogo, but the spell fails and his wand is launched out of his hand. I hear Ron yelling from the sideline with the other Gryffindor students. I ignore them as I wait for Draco and Crabbe to cast. Seeing they are both just staring at me aghast at how quickly their friend was disarmed, I just sigh. Come on Draco, I don't have all day, class starts soon. I lazily wave my wand as I speak. His face darkens. Immobilis. Expelliarmus. He and Crabbe cast at the same time. Their anger makes it a bit funny. Protogo. I block the first one, then chantlessly chain Protogo again, deflecting the spell back at Draco. Just like the last time, Pansy steps in front and blocks the spell. TCH, without Pansy neither of you would be able to stand for a second. Being protected by your girlfriend, like father like son I supposed. I raise my brows as I taunt him. Seeing a deep blush appear on Pansy's face, I laugh a bit internally. Draco takes a few steps forward until he is almost at the halfway line. I smile seeing him do exactly what I want. Since he is close, I can see where his wand is pointed before he casts Expelliarmus. He casts as I sidestep the spell easily as I aim at Pansy, who is just over his left shoulder. Petrificus Totalis. I cast at Draco's left shoulder. He dodges by shifting to the side, looking at me with a smug smile on his face. Thud. Draco turns around to see Pansy laying on the floor petrified. He turns back to see me with a similar smug grin, his face twists in anger. Crabbe steps forward next to Draco and points his wand past him. Immobilis. Protogo. I reflect the spell back to Draco, who blocks it, nearly falling backward as he does. My wand quickly turns towards Crabbe. Petrificus Totalis. Slam. Like a ton of bricks, Crabbe's fat body smacks the floor. I smile as I look at the increasingly angry Draco. Please, attack first. Otherwise, I'm sure it would look like I'm bullying you. You may even tell your father on me. I pretend to cower in fear. I see Draco's teeth grit as he shakes in anger. He quickly raises his wand at me. Expulso. A dark blue light flashes at me and my eyes go dark as I deflect it into the air. Boom. Part of the ceiling explodes with dust falling on me. Stupefy. I cast at him, not giving him the chance to cast again. Red light showers the room as Draco flies back, landing on the ground unconscious. That's enough. Flitwick yells. He looks over at Zabanai, take young Malfoy to the infirmary, tell him he has detention with me for the next 5 days when he wakes up. On top of that 30 points are stripped from Slytherin. He turns and looks at me not knowing what to say. Soren, after dueling class, meet me in my office. What did I do? I exclaim to myself, but I only give a nod in response. He sighs, seeing my nod. Team 3 is the winner of today's festivities. After I get done uncursing Team 4, we will begin dueling class. He looks at the unconscious Draco. We will start by learning dueling etiquette. I stepped down from the stage with Daphne, Ron, Harry, and Hermione greeting me. That was blood awesome. Ron says with a huge grin. Hermione slaps my shoulder. How did you chantlessly cast like that? Protego is the spell I've practiced the most, honestly. I've been practicing for more than a year now. Plus I don't have 100% success rate, I just felt like I could right then. I shrug as I reply. Once they all begin to calm down, I think to myself, perhaps I was too harsh on Malfoy. He is only 12 after all. My thoughts quickly go away, remembering that I don't care. After that, class began, and perhaps the most boring class of the week ensued. We spent over 30 minutes practicing how to do the proper salute, and then another 30 minutes doing the 15-pace walk. Class ends a few minutes early and I went to meet Flitwick in his office. I tell the group I'll be meeting them at lunch in a bit before heading inside. Walking in, I see Flitwick fiddle around and rummaging through some of his paperwork. Seeing me walk in, his head perks up. He holds up a finger. Give me a moment, I have to find something. I nod as I sit down in the chair across from him and wait. I look on his desk as he is busy looking. There are articles and articles on dueling spread on his desk. He was obviously looking forward to the class just as much as his students. Found it. He stands back up and hands me a flyer. It is a parchment with big bold words at the top: Youth Dueling Tournament. He notices my odd look at the paper and speaks up. The tournament is for ages 12 all the way to 17. I do believe with your talent you could get top 3 without a problem. He looks excited. It says here I need a coach. Also, it's during the school year. I say, not too sure about the prospect of leaving school for a week. Well, of course, I would go with you as your coach, and I would request the week off for us. I'm sure Dumbledore wouldn't mind if it brought him a new champion. He says with an excited smile. I look at the sheet over, pondering my options. Is it okay if I take this sheet and think it over first? Of course, of course. I will say this though. Winning the youth tournament at only 12 years old is a feat never done before. If you were to do it, that would guarantee any future you want. He says, gesturing to the air. I nod as I stand up, taking the paper with me. Then until next time, Professor. I nod my head as I leave. He waves his hand and the door opens and he nods his head as well. I look at the paper as I walk out. The fighting experience would help. After all, my casting is my only weak point right now. I'm good at chaining up to 3, but 4 seems to fizzle a lot. I'll need to work on it. Chapter 74, Split Decisions. At lunch, there are quite a few people talking about the fight against the Slytherin group and me. A lot of students were now looking at me with a bit of fear. It felt similar to when I *LLED the troll last year. The Gryffindors, however, looked at me with reverence, which makes me a bit happy. The group was curious about what Flitwick wanted, so I tell them since I don't care much. They all seem surprised. Ron and Daphne immediately say that I should do it. I am still a bit hesitant, but I do take their words into consideration. When we leave to go to potions, Theo ended up sitting with us. I am a bit surprised, but I am always happy to add people to the friends group. The class finishes as usual, but this time was a bit more fun since I had someone to talk to about potions rather than just doing the work and leaving. Defense against the dark arts is probably my least favorite class right now. Considering how fun I found learning offensive magic, it is rough to have such a useless teacher. Lockhart likes to go off on tangents for 10 minutes at a time to tell stories about himself. In the hour of class, I heard more about his fight against the Yeti in the mountains of Tibet than the differences between hexes, jinxes, and curses. Honestly, I feel like Lockhart is the worst possible teacher for this class, and I'm tempted to talk to Dumbledore about it. I don't want to be someone who complains a lot, but I don't see how this man is able to show us how to defend ourselves. The more he talks about his stories, the less I believe him. After class finishes, I walk to Flitwick's office to tell him that I have decided to accept his offer and join in the tournament. As I step in, I see him grading papers from Charm's class. His face brightens as he sees me walk into his office. I hand him the flyer back. I've decided, I'll go. He claps his hands. Fantastic. There will be one more student joining us. He has his own coach, so he will only be traveling with us. I'm a bit surprised and curious. Who is it? He smiles. A Hufflepuff, Cedric Diggory. Do you know him? I shake my head no. He nods. Come tomorrow at noon, I'll introduce you. He is very talented in charms and a kind young man. I'm sure you'll get along great. I nod my head thinking about it. Sure, sounds good, Professor. Now if you'll excuse me, young Black, I have the 5th year tests to grade. He gestures to the stack of papers on his desk. I wave as I start walking away. CYA tomorrow, Professor. He gestures goodbye, looking back at the papers, and begins grading again. The next morning Hermione, Ron, Dean, and I sit out at the Quidditch field to do our herbology homework on the Mandragora together. We manage to get Ron out of bed at 8:30 by tempting him with food and the offer to help him with the homework. It was a good excuse to do homework while watching Harry, Woods, the twins, and the others practice. We are sitting in the east courtyard, only 30 or so meters from the field. From the courtyard entrance, we see the Quidditch team making their way to the field. But they are intercepted by the Slytherin team making a turn towards them. The 4 of us stand up, seeing a confrontation about to start. As we get closer, we can see Harry and Malfoy arguing. Malfoy gestures at the broom he is holding, then at the ones everyone else on the team has. My father got them. The very best. Those are Nimbus 2001s. Ron points out. Malfoy's smile becomes smug. You see, Weasley, unlike some, my father, can afford the very best for me. At least no one on the Gryffindor team had to buy their way in. They got in on pure talent. Hermione quickly snaps back. Draco's brows furrow as he steps closer. He spits on the ground in front of her. No one asked, you filthy little mudblood. Everyone around looks taken aback at his words, even some of the Slytherin. Draco's head snaps to the side as my fist plows through where his jaw used to be. His unconscious body falls to the ground like a sack of potatoes. I hear movement next to me, so I quickly turn my head. A punch barely grazed my cheek, causing me to step back. I look up to see the still unstable captain of the Slytherin team looking at me angrily. With a smile, I quickly jab at his face with my left hand, hitting him square in the nose. I feel a scrunch as he falls back into another Slytherin who catches him. I look at the small amount of blood on my fist with a grin. 2 Slytherin kids drop their brooms and rush me. I back up and get ready. To my surprise, a haymaker comes out of nowhere and knocks one of them out cold. I turn to see Wood smiling as he swings at the other. On my left, one of the twins is beating up Flint and the other is hitting the poor guy that was holding him. On my right, Harry and Dean are fighting 2 bigger guys while Ron was on top of a poor Slytherin who didn't see him coming. I watch the chaos I created unfold with a bit of a satisfied smile. Mainly because we were stomping the Slytherins. Literally. The ones who can are currently running away while the unconscious or out for the count Slytherins lay on the floor groaning. Seeing Draco lying on the ground holding his jaw, I kneel next to him. I lean into his ear as I whisper, how many times do I have to teach you? Fuck off. It isn't that hard, right? He slowly nods his head as he lays there. I turn to see Hermione watching the scene with wide eyes. Harry, who is panting standing over a Slytherin boy, looks at Woods. What now? His brows raise. Now? We get in trouble, he states simply. I give a salute. Sorry, I can't get in trouble with you. I have to meet up with Flitwick, CYA. As I run off, I yell behind me if McGonagall asks. I wasn't here. I make it to Flitwick's office without a hitch and walk in. I see a boy who looks a few years older than me standing in front of his desk. He is fairly tall with a handsome face and broad shoulders. His face turns into a wide smile when he turns around and sees me. He reaches out a hand. Soren, I'm assuming? Flitwick was just telling me all the great things about you. He says, gesturing his other hand at the short man sitting at his desk. I shake his hand firmly as I reply with a smile, I guess that makes you Cedric? Nice to meet you, I've heard nothing but good things. Cedric laughs. Can't say the same. Every Slytherin I talk to hates your guts. I can't blame them after the show you did in dueling class. My grin widens. Yeah, that was fun. I hear the door behind me opening and I turn to face it. A woman in emerald green robes and a pointed hat enters. Ah, House Mistress McGonagall, what can I do for you? Flitwick speaks up first as I hide behind Cedric's larger frame. Her eyes seem to pierce Cedric as she points at him. Professor Flitwick, I'm here for the one that's hiding. I peek out. What for? I ask with an innocent and puzzled face. I have 11 eyewitnesses placing you as the start of a fight between the Slytherin and Gryffindor Quidditch teams. She says in a calm but sharp voice. I don't think I remember such events, I say listlessly. Were you not the one that fractured Draco Malfoy's jaw or breaking Marcus Flint's nose? Her voice getting sharper. I look away, avoiding her gaze perhaps. Chapter 75, Detention with Flitwick. After a grueling hour of being scolded by McGonagall, I am given detention to be served with whatever professor that requested it tonight. Much to my pleasure, Flitwick is the one who requested that I help him grade papers. This is a much better option than helping Snape, Filch, or Merlin forbid Lockhart. I happily walk back to the common room to see Harry and Ron laying on the couch across from each other acting dead. They must be tired because they don't even hear me come in. Why the long faces? I ask with a cheery smile. Ron looks at me with dead eyes. I have to help Filch polish trophies and clean the painting's picture frames. Harry rolls over to face me. I have to help Lockhart reply to fan mail. I shrug as I look at the bright side of things. That actually sounds kind of fun. You could mess with people pretty easily that way. I say, sitting down on the chair next to the fireplace across from them, resting until I have detention. Asterisk. A few hours later I open my eyes to an empty common room. I check my wristwatch to see it's 5 in the evening. I decide I should go grab an early dinner, then head to detention. I make my way through the halls by myself, but I stop as I begin to hear a voice behind me. I turn around but see nothing, so I keep walking without thinking much of it. KK asterisk LLLLV mugless. A voice quietly hisses behind me. A shiver runs down my back as I quickly turn around, this time to still see nothing. I close my eyes and begin to focus, looking for the souls around me. But I see nothing out of the ordinary, no human souls anywhere near me. I narrow my eyes as I quickly make my way to dinner, pondering what it could have been. I walk into the Great Hall and see not a single person I know. No one eats dinner this early, so it's to be expected. I sit down by myself and check the head table. Sure enough, Flitwick is there eating already. As I begin to fill my plate up, someone sits next to me and I feel a hand pat my shoulder. Hey! A familiar voice says. I turn to see Theo sitting down next to me. I smile, seeing him. What's up? Why are you here so early? He shrugs as he grabs a plate to fill. I usually grab food early and study while I eat. Are you not studying today? I say, gesturing at the lack of a book. He shakes his head. Of course not. You have to tell me about what happened at lunch. The rumor says you beat up the entire Slytherin Quidditch team with only your fists. Come on, you have to tell me, did you really break Malfoy's jaw? I roll my eyes. I only knocked out Malfoy and gave Flint a love tap. The rest were taken out by the Gryffindor team, and no, I didn't break his jaw. I fractured it. I broke Flint's nose though. He chuckles with a large smile as he fills up his plate. I knew it had to be exaggerated. Even you couldn't take on 11 people with only your fists. I ponder for a second. I mean, I probably could, I'm pretty strong. He rolls his eyes. Shurei, he says as he takes a bite out of the roasted ham. I shrug as I start to eat too. After a few minutes of chatting, I see Professor Flitwick approaching us. We both turn to face him. He nods as a hello. You may just come to my office once you are finished eating. I nod. Yes, Professor. Theo turns to me as Flitwick is walking away. What was that about? I sigh. I have detention with him for starting the fight. It's pretty easy though, I'm just helping him grade the tests from the first-year students. Sounds better than Filch. I heard he made a kid clean the torture chains last year. He shivers a bit as he speaks. I scarf down the rest of my food as I stand up. Guess I should get going. Theo waves me off. Don't be too harsh on the first years. I wave back as I'm walking away. I will. As I open the door to Flitwick's office, I see a second desk next to his. Ah, Soren, you're here. I have set up a desk for you to sit at. The answer key is on top of the pile. I nod as I walk over to the desk. It only has a quill and an inkwell, 6 stamps labeled O, E, A, P, D, T, and a mountain of test papers. I sigh as I sit down and look over the answer key. I turn to Flitwick. How lenient with answers should I be? He looks at me with raised brows. Have I ever been lenient on you? I think back to my exam last year when I got a 98 rather than 100 because I spelled Wingardium wrong. I shake my head. Not at all. He nods with a soft smile. Exactly. For being such an uppity and kind person, he sure is strict. I think to myself as I grab the T stamp. Much to my surprise, the next 3 hours were pretty enjoyable. Grading was tedious but also fun at the same time. Only about a fifth of the students failed, but only 7 got an O. Since I've always gotten O's, I thought they were common. I was wrong. Saying goodbye to Flitwick, I walk out of the office and head towards the dorms. I once again hear the quiet whispers and I decided to follow them. I wander down the halls following against the walls. I hear the whispers from. Ow! I feel something hit my chest and fall to the ground. I look down and see Harry sitting on the ground rubbing his head. Sometimes I forget that he is so short. I smile as I reach down and offer him a hand. What are you doing out this late? Curfew is in a few minutes. I ask. He grabs my hand and pulls himself up. I thought I heard something, so I was following it. My eyes narrow. I was as well. Did it sound like a hiss to you as well? He nods. My words are cut off as the tower bell rings, signaling the 5-minute warning till curfew. Oh no. Harry and I quickly turn towards the tower stairs and start to run. Seemingly with an assist out of nowhere, the stairs line up perfectly to the Gryffindor hallway. We bolt our way up with reckless abandon, stopping in front of the portrait of the fat lady. Password? She asks in her casual tone as we both are hunched over, breathing hard. Wattlebird, I say, standing straight up. She nods and the portrait creaks open. Walking into the common room, we find it full of people lounging around and reading, as well as some playing chess. I wonder if today is special, but then it dawns on me, it's Friday. Wanna go see what Ron is up to? I ask Harry as we walk past everyone. He nods and follows me upstairs. Chapter 76, to France. The next 2 weeks go by pretty well. I don't hear the whispers again, so I still don't know what they were. Our classes go by smoothly as well, and it is even more fun now with the new additions to our group. Before I know it, it is the day before I have to leave for the dueling tournament. The tournament will be 1 week for each round. Since it is during the school year, the time is spread out. If I pass the first round, I need to come back in 2 weeks and stay another week. I suppose there are a lot of kids, so it makes sense. Today is also Hermione's birthday. Unlike last year where it was sprung upon us by surprise, we knew. Katie, Daphne, Theo, and I managed to prepare a cake for her. I also got her a book as usual. Theo's pure blood connections were helpful for getting the cake, honestly. We end up celebrating in the Great Hall between lunch and dinner, so we were the only ones there. The house elves in the kitchen helped us set it up. After dinner, we all end up resting in the Gryffindor common room. By all I mean Harry, Ron, Hermione, and I. The rest had already gone off to do their own thing, if not we would have to go to a study room. I sigh as I lean back in the chair. I have to wake up early tomorrow, on a Sunday. I hear Ron grunt from the couch. Oh, shut up. You get the next week off school. I have to sweep the library with Filch tomorrow. Do you know how big the library is? All of us laugh at the genuine pain in his voice. I have to help McGonagall tomorrow. I don't know why Filch keeps requesting you, Ron. Harry says, laughing a bit. Maybe he likes you. I muse with raised brows. Ron rolls his eyes as he grunts before slamming his face into a pillow. I laugh a bit as I stand up. I'm going to bed. Good night, and happy birthday, Hermione. I wave at them as I walk up the stairs. Entering the dorms, I look at the clock in annoyance. Ugh, I have to wake up in 8 hours. As I reach my bed, I plop down heavily. I lay down in the empty room, still fully clothed. I don't need to sleep, but I have become so used to it during the school year that it's a nice break. When I wake up, I see Ron and Harry sleeping soundly in the beds next to me and catty corner from me. I push myself up as I look at my clock on the nightstand. 3:57. I sigh 3 minutes before my alarm. I slap the top of my magic alarm clock to make sure it doesn't go off. I sit up and make sure I have everything I need ready. It's not like I need a lot, only my clothes and my identification papers, well, and my wand. I look in the standing mirror and see my clothes are wrinkled to all hell. With a wave of my wand, I cast a few hygiene spells and iron out the wrinkles. Seeing my handsome self with my dark black hair and deep green eyes, I get a cocky grin. I pull Sin out of my robes so you can see my scarf more prominently. Sin hugs me tighter as I pat him, grabbing my bag with my other hand. I walk out with Sin now resting on top of my robes. I stop by the kitchen to grab a small breakfast. The house elves happily obliged as they started preparing for breakfast almost an hour ago. As I step out of the kitchen with bread hanging out of my mouth and an apple in my hand, I see Cedric. He emerges from a giant barrel at the end of the hall next to the kitchen. I stare at him confused, but I quickly realize that must be the Hufflepuff dorms. I'll be honest, I never cared enough about Hufflepuff to wonder where their common room is. I knew it was near the kitchen, but in a barrel? Odd. Then again, it is kinda cool, it's like a secret hideout for hobbits. Are hobbits real? I ask myself as I step towards Cedric. I waved at him, but he already saw me as he stepped out and he is already walking towards me. I toss him my apple as I grab the bread out of my mouth to talk. Good morning, I say with a grin. I slept pretty well last night, so I'm in a pretty good mood. Cedric smiles with even more enthusiasm as me. Morning, thanks for the apple I guess. Let's head out, shall we? I shrug as I gesture at him to lead the way. Flitwick told us to meet him at the bridge out of Hogwarts at 4:30 am, so we have time. We both take our time as we walk through the halls talking about his history of dueling. Apparently, his father works at the ministry and had high hopes for him when he was young. To meet those hopes, one of the things he did was take up dueling. Apparently, he has taken music classes, potions, alchemy, and ancient runes classes since he was 6. I can't imagine, seems far too exhausting, but I guess at least his father loves him dearly, I guess. His wand is weak with offensive spells, so he makes up for it with his overwhelmingly good defense. I tell him about my wand without going into much detail, but the simple fact that it may be the best wand for dueling out there. It's even better for K*ling, but I won't mention that. As we reach the crest of the hill, we look down and see Flitwick already standing at our side of the bridge. We walk over to him as we wave. Good morning, Professor. We both say in unison. Flitwick nods as he adjusts his snazzy suit. The 2 traveling cases next to him are almost as tall as him. They are both floating a few inches off the ground. Good morning, boys. I hope you are rested, we have a full day ahead of us. He says with a grin as he pulls out a long ticket that looks sort of like a train ticket. Alright boys, let's get going. Once we pass the disapparition barrier we will but taking this once use port K. Do you both know how? Flitwick asks with a serious face. Cedric and I both nod our heads. Good, let's go. The floating suitcases touch the ground as he gestures at us. Each of you take one please. We both oblige and pick one up, they are quite heavy. Can't port Ks be used inside the barrier? I ask confused. The professor gives me a kind smile. Yes, however, there is a small chance for the barrier to affect them and cause splinching. I nod at his words as I feel the scar on my right leg ache a bit. Once we pass through the membrane of the barrier we all stop as Flitwick nods. Both of you grab your bags together and grip tight. With your other hand, you will hold onto me. If you let go you may be dropped anywhere from the English Channel to Rouen. Paris is pretty far, so just don't let go and you'll be fine. He looks seriously between us as we both give a hard nod. He smiles. Good. We both grip one of his arms as we share the handles of our luggage. Once we are ready he gives a serious nod and tears the ticket in half. Once he tears the ticket the air around us quivers and we are pulled through space in a whirl. It's similar to the port I took with Sis, but obviously this one isn't made as well. The air pressure is honestly harsh. It's a good thing my body is abnormally strong. I look over at Flitwick and see him closing his eyes tight as he holds on. Cedric however has a worried look on his face. I look at where he is looking and I see his grip is slipping off of Flitwick. I look at his hand on the bag and see it's slipping off there as well. I grit my teeth knowing I can't catch him as things stand right now. He loses grip from Flitwick and looks at me with fear in his eyes as he begins to slip. Sin, catch him! I yell in a muffled voice as the wind nearly blocks it out. Like a magic lasso Sin springs at him, wrapping around his arm. I feel some of the weight as Sin uses my shoulders to anchor. After around 30 seconds the winds die down as we slowly drift towards the ground. Sin drops Cedric a few feet and wraps back around my neck as we slowly touch the ground. Flitwick kneels on the ground panting. It appears, huff, they gave us a faulty port K. I look around the large green grassy field we are in and I can see the Eiffel Tower in the distance. I kneel down and pat the groaning Cedric's shoulder. At least it sent us to the right place. That was incredibly dangerous. I will have to file a complaint with the dueling board. Flitwick says in an angry huff. Chapter 77, Arc de Triomphe. Only over an hour in Paris and I am already regretting coming. I'm forced to follow Flitwick since neither Cedric or I speak French and literally everything is in French. We follow Flitwick from street to street, getting odd stares from the locals. The streets go from narrow to wide, from old to new, in just a matter of a few steps. According to Flitwick we were supposed to be spit out at the hotel we were staying at, but since we didn't we are going to walk to the venue. It wouldn't be much of a problem if it weren't for the fact we are in the Muggle section of the city. So where are we going anyway? I ask the following behind. He sighs. We are heading to the Arc de Triomphe. I would take us to the hotel but I don't know how to get there through the Muggle side entrance. My eyebrows scrunch. Why don't we take a taxi? Flitwick looks at me confused. What's a taxi? It's a vehicle Muggles take to get somewhere by paying them. It's like taking a flying carriage, or the night bus. I say with an odd smile. Cedric perks up. I've heard of those, don't they cost money? I don't think muggles would take galleons. Do you have any muggle currency? I give a wry smile. Muggles all have different currency systems. I only have English pounds on me. They take francs here. But the professor can ask. Professor Flitwick sighs. If we weren't in such a populated area we could just apparate, drats. Alright Soren, how do we get one of these taxis? I gesture them to follow me, ignoring the odd stares from the muggles. Once we get to one of the big streets I wave at one of the bright yellow taxis like I saw in movies. I haven't seen many movies, but one I saw on a class trip Park Row has taught me the ways. After a few tries one of them pulls off to the side in front of us and I gesture Flitwick to open the door. Ask him how much to Arc de Triomphe, and ask if he will take British pounds. He looks a bit hesitant to open the door, so I open it for him and they start talking in French. After only a few words were exchanged, Flitwick looks at me. He says it will be 350 francs or 52 pounds. Flitwick says, obviously not knowing the value. My jaw drops. What a ripoff. I say, glaring at the taxi driver. Cedric looks at me confused. What, is that expensive? That's like 10 galleons, I say, still glaring at the driver who has a shit-eating grin. Both Flitwick and Cedric gasp. I roll my eyes as I open the back door to the taxi. Get in, it's fine. Wait. We can't just get scammed. Cedric says with an annoyed tone. Flitwick sighs as he gets in the front seat. I will pay you back when we get to the venue. I shrug. We are foreigners, it's to be expected we get ripped off. Besides, it's Muggle money, I don't really care. I say as I shove my bag between my feet in the taxi. Cedric sighs as he puts his bag in as well and sits down next to me. After a 30-minute drive I hand the swindler his money and step out of the taxi. The drive was short but the number of cars on the roads were terrifying. Flitwick hops out with his bags looking up at the giant arches. Finally, we can leave the Muggle section. We follow closely behind, ignoring the giant masses of tourists. We walk up to the outside of the largest arch towards the southern side and he sets down his bag. Pulling his wand out discreetly he taps the right pillar 4 stones over 1 stone to the right in a rhythm. After he is done he gestures for us to walk through the pillar. I look around to make sure no one is watching us, but for some reason, people are pretending we don't even exist. Which is odd since we are oddly dressed even if not in our robes. Are they just snobby? With a shrug, I walk through the pillar with Cedric close behind. Stepping through is like walking into a portal. The busy streets around us are replaced by open fields and what looks like a large fighting arena. Like a coliseum. Flitwick walks in behind us as we are marveling at the massive building. This area was built hundreds of years ago. Concealment charms are fixed up every single year. It holds the testament of just how powerful charm spells can be. Even in this massive Muggle city we are able to hide something like this. The wizards of the time managed to convince the Muggles to build the Arc de Triomphe to honor their fallen. While the wizards wished to use it as a perfect place to hide the entrance to this place. The pride in his voice makes you think he did it himself. I roll my eyes as I look around and see all the stalls on the walking paths between Gothic-style buildings. Even the Colosseum looks a bit Gothic with spires and everything. So how big is this space? I ask the professor. Around 3 square kilometers. He says with a proud huff. Well, lead the way, Professor, Cedric says, patting his back. Flitwick's face turns serious again, seemingly just remembering that Cedric almost died to the Rouge Porte-Cayet. He marches forward to the Colosseum and we both follow behind, closely watching the wizards around going about their business. Once we enter the large doorway to the Colosseum we are greeted by a large stone desk. Behind the desk stands a very tall woman with an uninviting expression. Flitwick and the woman begin talking in French, switching to English every so often. The woman's accent while speaking English was so thick it was a bit hard to understand. After pulling out the ticket porte-cayet the woman's face becomes worried. Only a minute later there is a group of people from the dueling board standing around looking at the ticket. I assume they are from the dueling board since they came from a back room. They all have upset expressions and begin apologizing profusely to Professor Flitwick. With a sigh, Flitwick walks back to us. Let's go to our rooms, they will have this sorted out, hopefully. Cedric, your teacher is in room 315, be sure to go meet him before tomorrow. Flitwick says, leading us out of the building. So what happened? You guys were talking for a long time. I speak up, curious. His eyes narrow. The porte-cayet was tampered with. We don't know if it was intentional or not, but they will be investigating the ones in charge of making the keys. My eyes narrow. Someone tried to K*LL us. I think to myself, wondering who I pissed off that they would want to K*LL me. I also wonder if it was targeted at one of the others, but I doubt it, they are both good people. Flitwick leads us down the walking path towards the second biggest building in the area at 6 stories tall. We walk into what appears to be a really posh hotel. Flitwick starts talking to the desk lady, who smiles and looks at us behind him. She replies in English, obviously trying to be polite. She asks our names and we all oblige. You are room 417, you are room 411, and you are in room 601. I take the card that says 601, turning to see Flitwick giving me an odd look. What is it, Professor? I asked curiously why he was looking at me weirdly. Usually penthouse suites are reserved only for seated members. You've never been to a tournament before, correct? He asks, confused. I shake my head no as we both look at the desk lady. She shrugs. I only have a list of who to give the rooms to. But I assume that means he has been given a seated position. I shrug since it's fine for me. I head up the stairs to my room on the 6th floor. The hallway on my floor has 12 doors, all a fair amount of space away from each other. Mine is the first off the stairs to the left. I open the door to my room and it instantly becomes apparent that it has an extension charm on it. There is a massive kitchen with a living room attached, then off to the side are 2 doors. I assume one is a bathroom and the other a bedroom. The room is bigger than the entire first floor of my house. Andromeda's house. I am a bit confused as to why I got the room, but I won't question a good thing. I plop down on the couch and stare up at the kitchen. I wonder what I should make. Chapter 78, Leon Koenig. A few hours later there is a knock at the door while I'm cooking lunch. There was basically every type of food I could think of in the fridge, so I am making hamburgers. I sigh as I take them off the heat and go open the door. Flitwick is there standing at the door. Here is your schedule, Soren. As well as 10 galleons for the taxi. I take them from him with a wry smile. You don't have to pay me back, Professor. I'm the heir to House Black after all. Money is no issue. He shakes his head. I can't have a student pay for me after all. I'm sorry I can't take you and Cedric on what I planned. I have to have a few meetings with the director of the tournament. I nod. It's fine, resting for the day is just as good. He nods back as well. Then I'll take my leave, be sure you aren't late tomorrow morning. With that he walks away and I can go back to cooking my burgers. Before I even get back in the kitchen someone knocks on the door again. I sigh as I open it again. I'm greeted by a face I've never seen before. A kid with blonde hair and blue eyes with a chiseled jaw, maybe 16 years old. He looks at me in surprise. I'm Leon Koenig, the second seed for the competition. He says in an only slight German accent, reaching out a hand to shake. I shake his hand a bit confused. I'm Soren Black. He looks a bit nervous. I'm sorry to ask, but how did you manage to get first seed in the competition? You seem a bit young. I shrug. I didn't even know I was first seed till you mentioned something. Yeah, you get room numbers based on the seed you are. I'm 602, right across the hall. How old are you, by the way? If you don't mind me asking. He asks cautiously. I'm 12. I say curtly. His jaw drops. What tournaments have you won? I was first in the German national tournament. That's how I got my second seed. I shrug. Never touched a tournament in my life. But I have K*LLED a troll before, and fought off a dark wizard before, but I was 11 when I did that. He looks taken aback. It is true that they look at achievements, and that is incredibly impressive. He says, rubbing his chin, mumbling to himself. He shakes his head, breaking his chain of thought. Well, there is no chance we go against each other in the first 2 rounds of the tournament, so be sure to call on me if someone tries bullying you. I'm 16, by the way. I chuckle a bit. I sure will. Do you want to come in for food? I was making burgers. If you want to join, that is, you seem like a nice guy. Burgers? You're American? I thought the Black family was British. He says, apparently knowing I come from a pure-blood family. I chuckle. Yeah, I'm from that Black family, it's complicated. I say with a smirk. He shrugs. That explains your accent. He pauses for a moment, thinking, sure, I have nothing better to do. Don't tell my coach though, he wants me to diet. I give him a thumbs. I would never. I say as I walk back in to keep cooking. As we are eating, Cedric stops by with his coach to introduce me to him. His name is Mr. Hilton, he seems to be a pretty nice guy. I introduced Leon and Cedric and they hit it off. Cedric ended up staying with us and I made him a burger as well. It was unsurprising seeing as Leon and Cedric have a very similar demeanor and personality. I also found they had a very similar upbringing. Leon was apparently a part of a pure-blood German family, the Koenig family, said to be from a long line of kings. However, according to him they really stopped caring about blood status after the World War ended. For obvious reasons. We all compared our positions on the tournament tree and saw we were all really far away from each other. It was a single elimination tournament with 4 bracket trees. I was first in the first bracket. Cedric was second to last in the second bracket. Finally, Leon was first on the 4th bracket. Each fight was 3 rounds per fight. At the earliest, I could only meet Cedric in the semi-finals and Leon in the finals. 1 round could be fought in the morning, a second later in the day. If needed, a third would be fought the following day. This first set over the course of the week would contain 2 fights. So I only had to fight a max of 6 times. My first fight tomorrow wasn't until 3 p.m. but check-in was at 8 a.m. Leon's first fight is at 8:30 a.m. so he leaves first and Cedric leaves not long after. His fight is at 9 a.m. The next morning I was at the Coliseum by 7:50 sharp. I met Flitwick waiting at the entrance as the over 100 students accompanied by their coaches marched in readying up. I waved at the professor good morning. So how do we check in? I ask in a fairly good mood. The bed was really damn comfy. He just gestures at the large arches of the doorway. Just walk through the arches, they have a tracking charm on them. We will be checked in once we walk through. I nod. Then let's go, I want to watch Leon's fight. He tilts his head. Leon. I nod. Someone I met yesterday. His fight is on stage 4 at 8:30. I say, walking ahead of Flitwick. Following the signs, we make it to the 4th stage near the end of the building. All 4th bracket fights will be done here. On the stage there are already 2 kids, who look to be teenagers, are already fighting. I sit down and look around for Leon. I find him standing at the entrance to the lower portion of the arena with his coach. His coach looks like a gaunt man with slicked back black hair and a black suit. If I saw him on the street I would say he was a mad scientist, not a wizard. More people begin filling the rows of seats around the Coliseum. I hear most of them speaking German, so they should be here for Leon, I think, since his opponent is Croatian. The first match actually takes a while. I can see why the tournament takes so long. The 2 teenagers aren't particularly *LLED, but they were better than most. The slightly older one won the duel and the referee called Leon and his opponent up. Leon's opponent looked to be 17, the max age, but Leon still had a polite smile. They shook hands and the referee began. All spells are allowed, except unforgivables and instant *LLS. Wands ready. They both hold their wands in front of themselves in an official manner. Turn, 15 paces. They both turn on their heels and step 15 paces. Once they both reach 15, the referee speaks again. Begin. He yells, putting his right arm up. Leon turns Expelliarmus. He yells before the other can even turn completely. Before the spell even reaches the other, Conf Ringo. He casts but doesn't aim at the opponent, instead he aims at his feet. The older kid gets ready and blocks the first spell, but his eyes go wide as the second isn't coming at him. He can't step forward fast enough to block it, so he puts up his arms and braces himself. The spell explodes when it touches the ground in front of him, causing him to fly off the stage. He lands hard on the ground below. He groans as he holds his stomach and rolls over, proving he is not dead. The referee raises his right arm with a bored look, obviously expecting this. Leon Koenig wins round 1. Your next round is on the schedule. The crowd stands and cheers at the smirking Leon, who waves at his fans as he walks down the stairs to his coach. I clap as well. I see him nod his head at me with a smirk. Flitwick nods his head. Your friend is very talented, Soren. I shrug with a smile. I expect no less. But is the other kid okay? He hit the ground hard. Flitwick smiles again, a marvel of charms. The entire lower stage is enchanted. Unless you are instantly *LLED, all wounds will heal within a few minutes. It takes a lot of magic to run such a powerful enchantment, that's why the tournament only runs until 5 p.m. I nod, a bit impressed. We should head to the second stage. Cedric's duel is soon. I guess we should thank Leon. His duel was so fast, we have like 25 minutes to get there now. Flitwick hops out of his seat. Then let's go. I'm sure he would enjoy seeing a friendly face in the stands. Chapter 79, Cedric's duel. Walking over to the second arena where the second stage was, we see Leon standing at the door with his mentor standing next to him. We wave at each other as we approach. Hey Soren, let me introduce you to my teacher. His name is Klaus Lang, my mentor as well as a teacher. Flitwick and I nod hello to him. He bows to head a bit with a hand over his heart service, to hair black. You may call me Klaus, I thank you for befriending my young lord. His German accent is thick, it sounds like he hasn't left Germany much throughout his life. I wave off his words. Not at all, it's my pleasure Mr. Klaus. This is my professor from Hogwarts, Professor Phileas Flitwick. Both Leon and Mr. Klaus look taken aback. The European Championship duelist winner Phileas Flitwick? It's an honor. Leon says with a huge grin. Mr. Klaus adds on, indeed I never expected to meet such an important man here. It's no wonder Hair Black was given the first seed, he was your student. Flitwick looks to have a slightly embarrassed smile on his face. It's not a big deal. It's an honor to meet you as well, I didn't expect the heir of the Koenig house would be here. I look at him confused. Is his house famous? He said it was a pure-blood family, but I didn't think much of it. I ask Flitwick. Flitwick shakes his head sadly. During the World War many German pure-blood families fled to get away from the Muggle conflict. Koenig house is one of the only purely magical families left in Germany. My eyebrows raise. I never even thought of that. Is that why he calls you young lord? I gesture at Klaus as I ask Leon. Leon chuckles at the embarrassed face of Klaus. Yes, he is a stickler of the old ways. His family has served mine for centuries. Klaus raises his nose in the air as he looks away with a blush tarnishing his pale face. It is tradition. I laugh with Leon as I pat his back, gesturing for us to walk in. Cedric's fight will be starting soon, let's get inside. Walking in, sure enough, we see Cedric standing at the bottom of a stage with Mr. Hilton. A boy and girl were fighting on the stage with spells flying every which way. Both of them obviously sucked at defense, so they were just like monkeys flinging mud, seeing who would fall first. After a few minutes, the boy who was slightly older fell off the stage while trying to dodge a petrifying spell with his body. It was actually kind of impressive that he succeeded in escaping it with how fast those spells fly. The exhausted referee sighs as he raises his left arm. Angelica Beaumont wins round 1. Your next round is on the schedule, he says, looking at Cedric and his opponent who were already ready. As the tired girl walks off the stage with almost no joy for her win, Cedric walks up. The grin on his face shows how excited he is. His opponent is also walking up across from him, with not nearly the gusto of Cedric. He looks skinny and slightly shorter than the tall Cedric. It should be a pretty fair match since they are both around the same age. That being said, I've never seen Cedric duel. All spells are allowed, except Unforgivables, and Instant K*LLS. Wands ready. The referee says loudly in a tired manner. He's only been at this for an hour and he is already exhausted, poor guy. Cedric and his opponent ready their wands, staring at each other. Turn, step 15 paces. They both turn on their heels and step 15 paces. Once they both reach 15, the referee speaks again. Begin. He yells, putting both of his arms up. Cedric turns first but doesn't attack, instead he waits for his opponent. His opponent does as Cedric predicted and fires off a spell. As soon as he turns Stupefy, he casts, jabbing his wand in Cedric's direction. Cedric smiles as he defends Protego he casts, reflecting the spell back at him. The skinny boy's eyes widen as he dodges the spell Conf Ringo Stupefy. He chains 2 spells in a row at Cedric. Cedric chains 2 Protego spells in a row, sending the explosion curse into the air and the Stupefy back at his opponent. His opponent bobs to the side to dodge and Cedric uses this time to strike. He raises his wand quickly and a white light glows on the tip of his wand. Bob Elias. He casts shooting bolts of white lightning out of the tip of his wand. His opponent's eyes show fear as the lightning catches him dodging the Stupefy. Ah, he yells as he is zapped, spasming out on the ground. Marcus, you have 5 seconds to stand up. The referee speaks in a cold and bored tone. 5. 4. 3. 2. 1. Cedric Diggory wins round 1. Your next round is on the schedule. He looks at the downed boy's coach. Come fetch your student, he says with lazy eyes. Leon, Flitwick, and I cheer as well as a few others, but it is nothing compared to the number who cheered for Leon. Cedric happily waves at us nonetheless. He walks up the stairs and sits next to us. So how is it? I'm pretty good at charms, hey. I shrug. I'll say that for sure, I've never seen that spell you used. Indeed, that was a creative use of a relatively weak spell. It wasn't as fast as mine, but it was a great job, Leon says, patting his back. Cedric only lets out a competitive grin at Leon's combative comment. That was a great use of the Bob Elias charm, young Diggory, Flitwick says, grinning ear to ear. Asterisk. After the group introduced Mr. Hilton and Klaus to the rest, we went to watch the first bracket contenders. I have to say it's like a different ballgame entirely. The average age of the people competing in the first bracket is 16, 4 years my senior. I wouldn't have noticed if it weren't for Leon pointing it out. But it seemed like most of them came from the same 4 countries: Serbia, Bulgaria, Moldova, and Romania. After spending a few hours watching, I start getting a feeling this will be a learning experience. Most of the people winning are not even seeded. They are basically people who Leon has never heard of in the dueling scene. Not only are they new, they are also damn good. Leon said they seem about as good as the top 3 in the German national competition. Even Flitwick was a bit concerned, but I have confidence that they are still not as good as me. That being said, I admit, they all look very *LLED. Why does Soren's first match have to be so late in the day? A familiar voice says, coming from the inner halls at the exit next to where we are sitting. Don't complain, we had time to shop at the Muggle shops because of it. Another familiar voice says. I hop out of my seat quickly and look down the corridor. Auntie, Sis Dora. I yell, running up to Auntie, giving her a big hug. Soren. Auntie and Sis both say in unison, both surprised. Chapter 80, First Duel. Auntie Dromeda looks away as she holds me. Merlin's beard, it was supposed to be a surprise. I look over at Nymphadora with a questioning gaze. Why are you guys here? To watch you, of course, she says with a small smile. I look up at Auntie, who nods at me. I smile as I grab both of their hands and pull them into the stadium. The group looks at me with odd gazes as I bring them in front of them. Cedric, Leon, Mr. Hilton, Mr. Klaus, Professor Flitwick, this is my auntie and sister. You can call her Tonks. Auntie, Sis Dora, this is Cedric, Leon, Mr. Hilton, Mr. Klaus, and of course you already know Professor Flitwick. I say as I gesture at each person individually. Leon is the first to stand up. Hello, I am Leon Koenig. It's a pleasure to meet you. After that was Cedric. One by one everyone gave their pleasantries until it came to Professor Flitwick. He stands up with a cheery smile. It's fantastic to see you again, Miss Tonks. I never got a chance to congratulate you for becoming an Auror. You deserve it with the amount of effort you put in. She smiles, stunning the other 4 men who I give a glare of. She softly smacks the back of my head, seeing me glare at them. Thank you, Professor. I started apprenticing under Shacklebolt as of recently. He has been a great mentor so far. That's great to hear, Miss Tonks. Perhaps you would like to come to Hogwarts as a guest teacher sometime. He says as he cusps his hands. I don't know about that one, Professor. She puts her hand on my shoulder and turns to me. Shouldn't you get on the field? Your duel is soon. I look down at my watch. It reads 2:49. I look up at Flitwick. I guess she is right. I gesture towards the lower stairs. After you, Professor. Flitwick smiles and nods as he walks down first, being careful of the stairs. As we get to the opposite side of the stage where 2 are fighting right now, I see 2 men standing opposite me. One looks to be in his 40s, the other early 30s. They both smile and nod at us. I turn to Flitwick. Who are they? I nod back, not wanting to be rude. He looks confused. I don't know. I look back up at the stage, and the boy, who looks around 17, just beat the younger kid quite easily. After the referee announces the winner, he looks down at me and the 2 men. Step up to the stage whenever you are ready. The referee's words confuse me since my opponent isn't here yet, but I go up. The man, who looks to be in his early 30s, steps up across from me with a kind smile. I look at him, then at the referee with a confused face. Is he my opponent? I asked, looking towards the referee. He looks at me with a bored face. Yup. I'm taken aback by his words. Isn't he a bit old? The referee shrugs. He passed the age barrier, so he is 17 or under. I look at the man, who is 6 feet 3 inches or 190 centimeters. He has a kind face with slightly Slavic features, broad shoulders, and an arm circumference larger than my head. How old are you? I ask him with questioning eyes. 17 years old. He says with an incredibly thick accent. It is apparent that his first language is Russian or a sister language. I'm Soren. What's your name? I ask, trying to be nice. Jury, he says, still holding his kind smirk. I sigh. Whatever. I look back at the group, who all have angry faces. Sis looks like she is about to rush on stage. I shrug and wave at them as I step up to the center line, looking up at the man who clearly isn't 17 and is nearly a foot taller than me. All spells are allowed, except Unforgivables and Instant K***. Wands ready. As the referee yells, I ready my wand in the formal stance, as does the man across from me. Turn, 15 paces. I turn on my heel and take 15 moderate paces and hold still as I reach the end while I ready my wand. Begin. The referee yells. I turn quickly, but I don't attack since I feel I will probably need to defend. Just as I thought, even without turning around, he points his wand at me and shoots a red spell at me chantlessly. I chantlessly cast Protego as I don't have time to chant, and I send the spell into the air. Boom. It was a Conf Ringo, aimed at my face. I look at the referee, but he says nothing, just staring off into space with a dull look. Jury is staring at me with a small smirk, no longer kindly Dobra. He says as he takes a step forward, raising his wand at me again. Again, a spell comes at me chantlessly. This time it streaks in an icy blue light. I dodge this spell as I fire back. Stupefy. I chant as I see him raise his wand defensively. Expulso, expulso. I fire twice, the first one a foot in front of him and the second one at his feet. He easily catches the first spell with a Protego and takes 2 steps forward, way faster than I expected him to be able to move. He easily deflects the 2 explosions into the air and looks like he is about to cast again, but I don't let him. Immobilis, a large wave of blue light flies at him only for him to rush forward, blocking the spell as he steps up to the center line. He flicks his wand at me, sending spell after spell, which I managed to block with a lot of trouble. I didn't expect anyone in this tournament to be able to chain more spells together than me. White, white, red, blue, then red again, all chantlessly. After the 5th spell in the chain, a gap formed and I took the chance to return the favor. Conf Ringo, Stupefy, Expulso. I chain 3 together as I watch him forced back a few steps. I stare at him annoyed as he looks like he is about to cast again. I decide to take a chance. As the red light leaves his wand, I meet it with my Expulso. The beams of magic seem to liquefy as they meet in the air. I grit my teeth as I feel my power being tested. I push with all my might as I feel myself slowly winning. I look up to see Jury glaring at me with a hateful glare, breaking his kind appearance as he slides back along the stage. Bang! The clash of magic ends with one final push. I managed to hit him with Expulso and send him into the air with an explosion. I begin to rest as I feel that it is over. The crowd is cheering but quickly stops as we all see something beyond our wildest imagination. Jury flips in the air like a gymnast and lands at the end of the stage perfectly fine. He has burned clothes but he looks completely unharmed, just incredibly angry. My eyes harden as I feel that I know what's going on. Just as expected, with an angry gaze he rushes forward with inhuman speed. Avada Kedavra. He yells as green light bathes the arena. All around me I hear gasps as my eyes look at him coldly. Sin quickly deflects the spell as I step forward and quickly cast at him with full power, holding nothing back. Reducto. The blue light from my wand streaks across the arena faster than any other spell today and hits him in the center of the chest. The blue light consumes him, reducing him to ash instantly. To my surprise, the coach jumps on the stage and points his wand at me. Before he can even do anything, a familiar figure appears in front of me with her wand out. Another smaller figure appears in front of me as well. Incarceres. Sistora casts Petrificus Totalis. Flitwick casts. Thin chains rise from the ground, wrapping the man as Flitwick's spell hits him, causing him to fall over like a sack of potatoes. I look between Sis and Flitwick, then at the referee, who is still standing there as if nothing happened. Am I disqualified?
Thanks for listening.